The Code to the Matrix, First Edition, The Golden Rule. James Evans Bomar III, JEB 1080 degrees Arch Chariot Observer of Spheres Prime Mobile. To all the youth of the world, so you may see the path to ascend, Zion. Forward, forward, forward. The race was not given to the quick or the swift, but to the one who could endure till the end. Then we found out there was no end. The unwary soul, who fails to grapple with the mocking demon of illusion, will return to the earth as the slave of illusion. To become a true master of fate, you must first become a knower of self. In a time much too distant to consider, we as humans splitting from the single source entered duality. Spiraling away from the Creator, some spun in the direction of 6 while others spun in the opposite direction of 9, this is the spiral force. These two forms contain complete opposites, however, it is with their union something new can be born. This is the sequence of life. Our solar system houses various binary or dual worlds, and Earth, called first Tiamat, is one of them. Once entering this realm, the spirit begins to develop its very narrow definition of things, as in most cases, besides twins, they are lacking their other side. In Extinct we create a stand-in which we call the ego. The ego is wholly constructed of astral energy in which we create and breathe life into every day. At times, not knowing power, we birth a monster which we love and care for, since after all it is a part of us, our baby. At some point in incarnations or loops, one realizes they must begin the quest of taming the monster. They realize they must flip it over and ride it. At that moment they also see how strong it has become, as it is stuck in its ways, rigid in form, brutish and ineloquent. In that condition we can take it nowhere, just as you never take a street dog into a royal party. The work before us then was to take this rough-cut stone and form it into a chariot of fire that could propel us through the center of the universe. It is there we will meet our other half. In this realm that is the meaning to life. To help us through this whole process and all of its components, the Most High developed a system based upon the energies of the entire universe. Seeing that humans are smaller composites of the celestial spheres, it became possible for one to know how to guide their particular life in the direction that would equal the greatest amount of potential for their unique design. In each person lies the pearl of the highest potential. If developed, it is a treasure to all existence, visible and invisible. This wondrous metamorphosis was possible of the human creation. However, as you see in some parts of nature, not every creation has been given this ability. Thus there arose a challenge from lower forms of consciousness that manifested as jealousy, and thus spirituality and religion were created. These are the limits. Once again, at the close of this time segment, the masses will have an opportunity to discover their true form, which is not a word and comes before even thought. It is the highest. If you but knew. Reason one entire universes are known to be binary, this gives the possibility of balance and diverse continuation. A figure 8, which is the sign used for infinity, is actually the sign of the two worlds that one continues to reincarnate through, one after the other, in an infinite loop we call stasis. Our own parallel actually exists in this other world simultaneously until it is merged with. It also remains just as clueless as you are right now to its existence. Consider hot, cold, light and dark. Is there not warm and grey which can easily fit between the two? Not to mention in temperature there is hot, cold, warm, vapor, freezing, and many more stages, each having a particular use, some being very beneficial for a certain moment, and useless for others. If someone came to your door looking for a person that you love to do them harm, would you tell them they were inside, or would you lie and say they were not around? If you lied to protect that person, is that good or bad? If you ask a pastor of a church, they will say it is evil to tell lies, period, but is better to allow the loved one to be hurt. As you see, everything is a matter of perspective. So there can be no good and bad, only reason, and reason has so many parameters. If all things are not considered, a person could be left confused, not knowing what decision to make from time to time, thus they are left and lost in time. Whatever you do in life, let it be endowed with meaning and purpose. The world is lodged in the phase of opposites right now, thus we face wars, racism, and extinction of our natural life. What I'm presenting here is the information of the inner workings of the world along with its creeds, cultures, and religions that have shaped our thoughts and actions since antiquity, extending several incarnations. We will see how ideas grow over time and sometimes lose their true meaning altogether. In this we will see also how we were taken off track. This due in part by the controllers knowing if you take humans from their original cycle they are easy to confuse and enslave. Let us not forget we faced many conquerors in the past, intending to usurp the order of the world and bring it under their sway. This they accomplished, and it should not be forgotten no matter how much the illusion tells you it does not exist. The foolish think of me, the unmanifest, as having manifestation, knowing not my higher, immutable and most excellent form. Fools disregard me as clad in human shape, not knowing flesh cannot withstand me. They have empty hopes, vain actions, of vain knowledge, and senseless they verily are possessed of deceitful nature and become undivine beings. I hurl these evildoers into the womb of distortion, deluded birth after birth, not attaining me they thus fall into a condition even lower, without the slightest suspension, proving they are not using the reason and senses we gave them. The Most High. There exist certain systems, mainly language and religion, that perpetuate this fallacy of illusion in a subliminal way. If you happen to be aligned with any of the religions or ideas being discussed, do be careful not to think of it as bad if you happen to hear something that makes you uneasy. After all, many of us at one time or another in this life or in past lives have avowed ourselves to something only to later find out we have outgrown it because we now possess an entirely different set of key knowledge. Every time we learn something new that is the truth we should celebrate, we are closer to home. The others. This world we are in is fully animate, it has been constructed by an ability so powerful it has missed no details. Challenge in life equals substantial growth. It is after all the constant lifting of heavier weights that makes a person strong. Those weights we must lift are actually other life forms that are very dense, slow-moving vibrations. These weights when attached to us make us wait right here on Earth, burdened down and unable to fly. Those of us who are divine positive are attracted to the light, thus we must get light by releasing the weight. But wait. The complexity of the Creator exists within its creations and there are many of us. On third density we all appear to be about the same. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, etc. Although if you had the ability to see each individual's astral form, no 2 forms would look the same. Some you would see infused with animal natures, extraterrestrial life, unknown elements and essences, and everything else they had accumulated in past existences, all comprised in one auric field. When that field is placed in a humanoid body, the outer shell looks similar enough to allow you to get along in society. We are all something much more different than what is seen in the mirror, so we must never be confused that the reflection is the complete you. On other dimensions there are so many life forms they cannot be catalogued. It would be much more difficult than listing every type of insect, plant, fish, mammal etc. which exist on such a small planet as Earth. On their dimension they have a spirit form, the breath flows through all living creatures. When they take physical form, as we have, they combine with what is most like their character. The ancient knowledge was to know how they appeared in the seen world, how to communicate with them, and which ones to avoid. Many of these beings had no concern for the humanoids whatsoever, themselves being either much too dense to comprehend human life or much too developed to waste thought on something so distant and primitive. There are beings who in fact are closer to us in proximity of creation and also endowed with reason. They possessed a fiery and airy nature. They are known now as the serpents. Mankind's history with the serpents is undeniable. For example, in Colombian mythology, Batu, the primordial woman, was called Serpent, celestial snake. Mesoamerican cultures worshipped Quetzalcoatl the feathered serpents, and they await his return just as Christians wait for Jesus. The Egyptians called them Nataru and said they came on heavenly boats and set up priesthoods whose priests were called Chdi. Sound familiar? The Sumerians claimed their ancestors were reptilian Anunnaki who genetically modified them to be slaves. It is of value to keep in mind the Sumerians say they were hybridized and made as slaves, while other legends simply say they intermingled with their population. In Ethiopia, stories and ancient statues can be found of the serpents known as Naga. These Naga also went into Persia and China. Nagasaki was named after the serpents who migrated there. In Japan, the dragon Yasha is the protector of Buddhism. The Celts make mention of the Druid adders or great serpents that came to instruct them in mystical arts. 6th page. The Hebrews speak of the serpent Nakash who was ever giving them trouble and misguiding their people. The Arabs produced thousands of codex warning of the serpent Shaitan and his cunning ways of making man and woman fall short. It is safe to say that we can identify at least one non-humanoid being that in fact interfaces with our life cycle, and this is only one, but there are many more. Thus we should be able to establish that we are not alone. Reason 2. The Maya clearly show they had already pledged allegiance to a group of masculine serpents. The serpent races are just as vast as our own. Many of the serpents are on a collective mind, thus they are generally out to accomplish their own agenda and stop at nothing to see it through. Humans are looked at as a resource to most of them, they are a supremacist warrior class. Also some have mated with the human race and try to protect their hybrids as extended family. Many of the ancient reptilians despise this union and thus a war has ensued amongst the elders and the siblings. Reason 3. In the Egyptian glyphs it clearly shows much larger humanoids inhabited the land. They are the Nephilim bent on world domination and enslaving what they called inferior humans. They exist now in spirit form. This is beyond Alexander the Great and Constantine. In fact, this is where they drew their power and destiny from. They were just the human catalyst, hybrids themselves. Although their legends are so shrouded in myth, it does them little credit to the truth of their origin. Alexander was known as Great Two-Horn, and by the Arabs Dul-Qarnayn, who built the wall. 7 page. The correct knowledge actually makes your spirit larger. Knowledge is the food for the spirit. When this happens, just like a fish that is gotten too big for its tank, you must move on. This is no different than having a small bike as a child that takes you everywhere you need to go. As a child your range is a lot smaller. When you get older you may need a car, plane, or even a ship depending on where you are intending to travel. The body itself when developed is the vehicle to traverse the cosmos, and it must now be prepared to do such a thing. This is a vastly populated territory we speak of, and it contains the experiences you will need to continue growth. We will discover that all the things we have gone through in life have served to get us to that point. It is only of value to realize that since nothing is absolutely still, you must continue to move. This is the nature of our entire universe. Nothing dies. Even if you blow it up, it will still become an infinite amount of pieces of whatever it was before. It is a wondrous age we have entered as we watch the mist of the illusion dissipate. The hot spiral of reality permeates the globe. We are awakening as children of giants from a long slumber, realizing that we have been living a long dream. As a planet we have seen many ages that are part of a larger cycle of growth. This is the process of turning dirt into gold. One thing that we can be sure of, since man and woman have triumphed through the Stone Age to now meet the end of the Space Age, we most certainly intend to continue on to what is next. Reason 4. From the Stone Age to the Space Age was made to look so easy a caveman could do it. Have you asked yourself where our world is headed next? What do you think organizations like NASA, Lucent, and Sony are really doing with now trillions of dollars? Like a game of chess, you anticipate the player's next move, so we see that it is the age of ether we are arriving into, or more simply put, spirit. Now we can begin to do the things that only made up the fiction portion of our previous ideas and imagination. The weight of the body, which is now the cube, will be shed and we will be open once more to higher senses. We would do well to develop and train these senses now. As we speed up and things take place, it will not be time to practice. There is no doubt that we will experience a new eon. We are all adepts of motion, acolytes of the flux, repopulate the galaxy, and thus we have solidified our wave through the harmonic cosmos. We are vessels of known and unknown energies, untold being ourselves, converters for multiple life forms to assimilate and grow not only on Earth but also in space as above so below. 8 page. This energy field cannot be seen with the untrained eye but exists all around you as a standing column wave. With the science of sound, which is vibration, we can venture to know that if a large wave is made by anything in the same pool, it will only make the smallest wave speed up and increase in size, thus the smaller supported by the great and coaxed to become bigger. Since these greater forces are now sending out stronger waves than ever, our choice is when we face that big wave: can we ride it, or will we wipe out and hope to catch another? We can be sure that we cannot be destroyed because the soul within us, a gift by the Most High, is immortal and without end, but ye can be made to forget, which is called the second death. Figure 5. An actual NASA photo of what appears to be a very conscious form in the galactic looking back at us. Phillips Astronomy Atlas, page 194. Other sentient life forms are found on Earth all the time, but we have now been trained to reject clear proof separating us more from the reality of the existence of other creations, many of whom are very intelligent. When a person really assimilates there are other sentient things in existence, it opens them up to better understanding the Most High through diversity. This also allows us to make a sober estimate of ourselves and where we personally stand in the levels of matter. When one remains insolent to a fact of such magnitude, there are sure to be repercussions. Those repercussions cause a supremacist nature. Never considering what we think is the top is actually the bottom for another being. We would assume we are on an elated level, which really does even more damage than good, since the subconscious mind factors in that we are poisoning the same air we breathe, so as the most intelligent we are really the most ignorant. Anything built on that kind of foundation will go through successions of destruction and chaos. Now we have Earth's full historical description. When this changes, which it will very soon, everything will be different, fast. 9 page. My first experience with the others was when I unknowingly started a purification procedure and became enlightened. I had no doubt heard of accelerated thinking and higher abilities, however, my intention at the time was to just seek answers from a higher source, not to mention trusting if whether a higher source could actually be contacted. I knew something higher existed. That became obvious by seriously taking into account man did not create man, it's at least mathematically not possible. I had done this by chanting until my body had changed its complete vibrational frequency, which took about 2 hours and some extreme desire. The desire I called HSM, heart, soul, and mind, something I found in the Torah that was worth extracting. It was said to be the real formula of contacting the Most High, a focal point to interface with if one came to such a moment that contact would need to be made. Once I started to activate, all the metal in the room was shaking. I had to remove my watch, belt, and anything that contained metal. I had no idea this was going to be the outcome. The energy was far more than I anticipated, thus I was extremely unprepared and confused but strong nonetheless. I had become the portal for higher selves. As the camera continued to run on my PS3 catching these moments, I knew we had something special. Finally I had vividly captured my proof of the paranormal. I can only explain it as I went up and came back down very fast, and I could feel the essence of where I had gone inside of me, especially in my hands. My friend, who is now my witness, was even less prepared. He had also experienced the phenomena by simply touching me once I reached high vibration. This he did by accident or fear of the metal situation. This prompted him to grab me and ask me what was happening, like I knew. That caused it to spread to him instantly, and later he said he went down deep into somewhere, saw himself, grabbed himself, and started making an ascension back out with things hot on his trail. He was, what I later figured out, in some lower dimension being ruled by some dominion. This was defiantly a result of his current character, although he was given a chance nonetheless. 10 PAGE. Reason 6. What the many ancient tribes have been explaining to Westerners since time memorial is that we are actually located on a lower plane that is being ruled by various entities. The subplanes are indicated above by the triangles in the center. The pictures of beings you see are of various ascended masters or gods who rule different parts of the planes. The 4 outer points are the gates. The Kabbalah reflects the same thing, indicating the planes as spheres or hexagrams. They also served as calendars because the alignment of everything from above and below is perfectly in order. Breaking through the netherworld with obviously his car in tow, my friend got stuck. How this appeared in our realm was he looked to me to be gone, wacko, done, goosed. I was gathering myself fast, still feeling the strength, but also thinking of the full parameters of what just occurred. I knew that I had to do something fast because my friend Fiend was saying the same 2 words over and over so loud eventually the neighbors would call the cops. He seemed to be in a mental loop. Using the word, I yelled it into his mouth. It was all I could think to do. Later he said at that moment he saw a light and he was able to hurry to it. That brought him back to this plane. That was my second vivid spiritual encounter. We will now mention with no more delay our source, the exact one with no equation, beyond capacity and function, jubilant mantra dispersed in realities self-generated. We swoon in ecstasy when you touch us, and we guard thy beloved with our life as no cost. The charge is to admonish the guided with exact knowledge of this time sequence and its mysteries we will expose as they lay bare before us. This is so all things may be made clear and the path may be made level for thy feet. Think not these works are those of my own, nay, I was found by the source headed swiftly in the wrong direction, it was then I was visited. In that state I was strengthened by the hosts who perceiving in me such a lowly state but a subtle glow as we all possess the remnants of a brighter star in our 11 Page hearts. It was through them it was conveyed to me in my mishaps. It was in such joy of returning to the true path and turning from the abyss that I light ultra-rays resplendent that will exhaust plutonium fuel cells so all in the darkness may know of and come to receive the real light. It was then I knew that the world could raise its entire vibration by contact with just one person who could hold the frequency. The voice that entered inside of my head after the charge started to tell me things that I had never read or seen before. I also felt the activation of the opposite hemisphere of my brain which came first as a separate voice with a mind of its own. At first I thought I had gone crazy or had broken something in my brain. As I settled down I realized it was my other half so excited to be heard finally. I spent weeks on Google checking the information after it was made known to me and I was fascinated with such a breakthrough as everything that was being spoken into my mind was accurate, not to mention the personal hidden things it revealed. For me at that moment I knew there was something they were not telling us, this should be the first subject in school. I imagined how much the encounter would enliven the youth. This is what we wanted. Later when I was able to enter higher states through simple whole-body breathing techniques I realized our potential as a species is definitely a threat to anything that seeks to rule over the human race. It would not be possible, the energy of freedom is too great and when felt, one's life means nothing if they cannot constantly feel it again. If the humans were to unlock their true self thus broadcasting a higher signal or frequency that would permeate the globe, it would surely burn holes in the nets and webs created to surround our atmosphere at most fear that's keeping us trapped within. They admit the eye can see thousands of miles when there is no atmosphere, this was another phenomena they recorded when in space. This is the time one is now free to feel and receive the truth from the thin air which contains a stream of information of now, past, future and most valuably who we really are. Who we really are is the biggest secret period, any wise man thinking on that will agree. What I also felt more than I understood was that it was harder to destroy a planet than it was to keep it in harmony and peace. The planet was so strong, I watched how much she took payloads of nuclear arsenals, H-bombs and A-bombs all while keeping the children snug on the other side of the world, spinning lightly on her axis with only a slight wobble. This is the true food for thought. I was convinced that the majority would want to be on a higher vibration and I set out almost immediately on that quest. What was conveyed to me then was that many people in our history all the way until our current day claiming spiritual enlightenment, especially the New Agers, were talking to angels and masters that had in fact corrupted our world long ago. Many of these beings at a certain point were workers of a much greater force, thus they learned various mental and spiritual techniques that appear godlike to humans. In time, pride, jealousy, selfishness, and scarcity crept in. The order and ideas that they should divvy up everything that was resourceful to them became prevalent. This is in part due to the nature of the Most High, which does not watch all its creations like a micromanager. 12 PAGE. Once the design is put in place, it's off creating more universes, and all in time will eventually take its proper form. However, there are phases in between. The creations make up the entire construct of allowing those in-between phases to be possible. We sharpen each other. As with all things, some beings have more senses, thus more power than others. These beings are oftentimes given the name angels, although their classification is much vaster and the term angel is far from the word that should be used. Consider this: most modern angels' names end in El. El is the name given by the Hebrews of their god, which corresponds to our planet Saturn. This means all the angels work for El, and this you will see is true on various levels as we go on. You will learn to trace the origin of a name using a system that is infallible. Through the correct procedure you can seriously have a guide to the universe and a map to other worlds beside Earth Dimension 3. Breaking down Saturn, you have Saturn or Za and Turn. The word with the most practical use out of these combinations is Saturn. As we go on you will learn who Sat is. As said before, the original name for this planet was El, thus the new name given in English signifies some type of unity between this being Sat, and another simply called Urn. When we drop the N to see if we can get any more clarity, since an urn's basic meaning is just something you use to put the ashes of the cremated dead in, we find a place that sinks up her. Ur was known as Chaldea, also known as Samaria, also known as Babylon. History says Ur of Chaldea, home of magic, Chaldean magic, and the Necronomicon spell book, was also home of a young boy known as Abram, later Abraham. According to the story, Abram's father Terah made idols known as teraphim, and it was Abram's responsibility to peddle those idols to the people. It was said Abram rejected the worship of the idols because they had no power. He later discovered the true God and thus became the father of all mankind, just like that. Logically, this story has to have so type of hidden meaning because its literal definition is preposterous, although almost all people believe in the literal meaning. They believe Abraham is their ancestral father even when their genealogy places them somewhere like Africa or Asia. These household teraphim caused much trouble throughout the Bible even after Abram's exit from Ur. Rachel stole teraphim from her father and he could not rest until they were returned. A few other similar stories exist like this. It is revealed that the sylphs, serpent spirits of the air whom I call Siths, inhabited these items and would bring forth oracles of the future. Abraham's wife is Sarah, his father is Terah. It is obvious the real story here is about the unity of the seraphim and the teraphim, both being spirit forms. Again, since the Bible is a partial account of various stories, only those who really have dissected the clay tablets are able to cross all these characters back over to their original Sumerian archetypes, along with putting together the details of their story about what went on. When we are simply looking for truth and spiritual growth, this all becomes too much. So many have never researched any of this and are at the altars blindly saying Amen. They might as well add Ra after that, it's still the same being. Amen Ra. Blindly they are dragged about. 13 PAGE. All the stories from the Sumerian tablets are retold in the Torah after a few alterations, mainly with the names of the individuals involved. By changing the names it became virtually impossible for the common people of the times, most of whom could not read nor write, to realize they were actually still following the religion of the Chaldeans long after being led from captivity. The Hebrews became enslaved by the Babylonians, along with many other nations afterward. As more cultures are put into the melting pot of Babylon, facts become blurred with fiction and languages are turned to Babel. Terah, Abraham's father and Torah. The first 5 books of the Bible are so close together in spelling it begs one to wonder what is meant by all this. You will soon see that many of the stories being told are the events of the crossbreeding that took place with mankind. Amazingly, many ancient nations such as the Phoenicians had no written language or culture of their own. Instead they borrowed from everyone they conquered. They altered the original cultures and languages of these people, saying they were perfecting them. What audacity! In the Western world we credit our language, English, much of our symbolism like the phoenix, our current death and resurrection doctrine, and many other things to the Phoenicians, who were really the Philistines. Philadelphia was the original state capital of the United States. The biggest mistake a conquered people can make is to begin to imagine they were never defeated, thus placing their trust in the assailant. We are seeing the results of that now. Our government, spiritual leaders, and instructors have been telling a multitude of lies, many without the slightest knowledge of it. Some are sworn traitors avowed to something much more sinister. We mistakenly have trusted the same system that once brutally annihilated everything that had its own will, so they could indoctrinate their falsehood. Reason 7. There are traitors amongst us with phenomenal resources that have avowed to something far more devious than can normally be conceived. Left unchecked for centuries, they have finally come to the conclusion of an agenda scheduled for the near future. Who will face them? What now has to be done in order for us to discover our true potential, as we have to put our real past back together? During the times pharaohs, czars, kings, and shahs despoiled the lands, they found it most important to alter the history, culture, and language of the people they conquered. This is how they gained a monopoly over social and spiritual power, the latter being the controller of the former. Most of these factions served the unseen hand very far back in our history, so they generally, 14 PAGE, had the same agenda. Removing a person's spiritual belief in themselves leaves them powerless. All of mysticism has effect based on the belief of the wielder of such power. In ancient times many had such exemplary belief in their internal power, symbols, and talismans they were very difficult to conquer, much less indoctrinate. The tyrants of ancient times sent entire armies to subdue them, and often entire armies were laid to waste. Many eluded those armies by going underground, deep into the mountains, and some even left this dimension. After all, what does killing mind-controlled soldiers really solve? The greatest adversary to the human race has been the human race. No matter how much evidence we find that links devils, aliens, spirits and various other life forms to the corrosion of our natural state, in all these stories you will find human traitors that gave them access to our inner circles. The entire human race was a collective brother and sisterhood capable of maintaining contact with one another across entire planetary systems. We were grouped more commonly as all humanoids, not black man, white man, yellow man, etc. It is virtually impossible to break apart from the outside anything as strong as human will. This book is not about pointing the finger, this book is about understanding our original state, how it was altered, how to grow back into it, and even excel beyond its original potential. At this moment we are in a degraded state. It is only pride that keeps the individual from admitting this. Power now lies mostly in monetary wealth, not spiritual essence. One will always pass away, the other is eternal. Common sense is not common. This may sound a little confusing, especially this early on, however, the earlier you see this the better. When they decided to make the names for the planets in English, they really did begin to turn things in an opposite direction. Searching for other names indigenous tribes used for the planets will turn up almost nothing. Some may think this is because in ancient times we had no knowledge of the cosmos, and of course this proves to be untrue. We are told the Sumerians, Egyptians, and a few indigenous tribes from Africa have the only details of the names given to the planets in ancient times. Whatever the case, we can be sure that what we call the planet Saturn in modern times may not be actually referring to the planet with the rings, but more of an idea of evil Sat, brought forth from Ur. Our consciousness, when not hindered, will always look to the sky for answers. Our spirit is from the sky, or rather far out in space, while our bodies are indeed flesh and will remain here as dust. When we innocently inquire about the names of planets, stars, and moons wanting to learn more, we get names that are tainted with deception. The vibration of air is that of an animal. In fact, so-called early man depicted the entire cosmos as animal forms rather than the much greater concept space stands for, which is beyond normal life on Earth. It is highly unlikely we will find a horse on the moon, but this has not stopped them from naming the quadrants of the moon mare, like nightmare. 15 PAGE. Reason 8 quadrants of the moon are called mare. The commoner would pronounce this just as it sounds, esoterically it is pronounced Mary. The names of spots on the moon are riddled with a deep significance to its origin and use. Unlike most modern church participants, those initiated into various magical societies evoke angels and spirits all the time. They do this by various means. One key element involves drawing perfect stars inside of circles or squares. A symbol drawn is physical proof of one's intent. A perfect star is often made with a tool used by the elite called an angle. This word angle is an anagram for angel. The tool itself is the shape of an L, that's right, EL. If you notice when drawing a star, it consists of straight lines. Straight lines are opposite to nature, which itself is a composite of spheres and circles. The body itself contains no straight lines. These straight lines are known as masculine while the curved lines are feminine. It is known that fleshly beings are categorized as feminine despite their sexual orientation, while heavenly beings are known as masculine due to their strong ethereal nature, which can even withstand the force of being in close proximity to the sun. 16 PAGE. Reason an angle. The tool seen below the Masonic G in the shape of an L is used to draw straight lines, while the protractor above is used to make the perfect circle to create talismans. There is recorded knowledge of 1/3 of the angels in the sphere of Saturn, rebelling. Those fallen ones came to Earth and intermingled with woman, thus creating the term mankind, meaning kind of like man but not entirely. No matter how fictitious this may seem, it is in fact true. These beings go under the names of Rephaim, Nephilim, Anunnaki, Titans, Giants, and Danites. Along with their offspring, they make up the legends of various mythological creatures of various titles. This resulted from the union of the angels with not only the women but also with the animals. These offspring became known as demigods, meaning half god, half man or animal. They possessed various powers that caused the indigenous tribes of the time to worship the supreme creators, which was far from true. The head of the fallen angels would place the demigods over the people to rule them in a hierarchy or pyramid structure. They would remain in contact with the demigods from their habitations in various constellations such as Orion. Ancient Aram indicates the name of Orion originally being Nephila, meaning Nephilim. Orion is depicted as a giant man for this reason. There will be lots of Orion sinks as we go on. They have guided much of what we have seen in the media as children growing up until this very day. As a child, I remember watching a cartoon called Fraggle Rock, which was about the life of the Fraggles, especially their encounters with the giants called ogres of the land. In pre-Christian Scandinavian, Orion's belt is known as Friggle's Rock, no doubt the origin of 17 PAGE. The name of the cartoon. There is a heavy amount of Scandinavian in our language. Reason 9. The daughters of Cain, with whom the fallen angels had companied, conceived, but they were unable to bring forth their children, and many died. Of the children in the womb, some died and others split open the bellies of their mothers, coming forth by the navel. They thought evil continually, and God bore with them for a time. Entire material and ethereal kingdoms below the third heaven were erected and hewn for their spiritual and physical residence. The task of building these lofty havens fell to the humans in this world and the one to come. What a cruel treatment! Expansive kingdoms the slaves did build, but the fact was the humans were in the lower dimensions with a bad case of memory loss, only being allowed at times just to worship the god and bask in its false light. Those were the favored ones. The others lived much worse than when truly alive in unity with the Most High. Thus these lower planes became known as the netherworld, Araluamenti Duatilizium Sheol Hades as the matrix imperishable Devashanic plane Markuth Maya Lemeria, a place where injustice was allowed to rule through Ijji, Neters, Baalim, Valkyries, Mes, and Manes for a time. since everything has its place in contrast. 18 PAGE. Reason 10 Man has been the constructor for these gods, building them high places so they may enjoy what the humans have gotten in return are lifetimes of being a servant with little reward. Their structures are always placed on ley lines to control the energy in the area. In order for many regions to be free, some building must be removed from the ley lines. They are binding the energy of freedom and suppressing clear thought. In history, when structures bind the ley lines for too long, cataclysms occur to shake everything off of them. 19 PAGE. Reason 11 The 2012 Olympics logo says Zion. Even more diabolical is the final Olympian ritual will return home to London on the ley lines of their old monoliths. The Greek Olympians Hester, Hephaestus, Aphrodite, Ares, Demeter, Hermes, Poseidon, Athena, Zeus, Artemis, and Apollo were their chief gods, most of them bloodthirsty titans, giants, Nephilim. Not many will see this all coming, only a few will escape. Disbelievers block their own way. We sent men, women, and even the pure ones to them to persuade them that there were multiple heavens, and they were caught up in the lower dimensions, deceived by the stars. They were, and they would not listen. They would not forsake the partners they had subscribed with the Most High, imagining them to be in favor of their growth. In spite, the gods gave them little and blocked the path of ascension. Thus there was a silence of man and woman's great deeds in the heavens, and there was little to harvest. Truly the people were not guided, trading paper for life. Then the veil began to lift, and once again man and woman recognized each other as the only source of harmony. We were all together then, man and woman, shaping and forming a new world. Truly our work is not in vain, and just as the trees, we are numerous and patient, as we provide man and women their substance, just as we all must live. We are currently positioned in a place Kabbalistically known as Markuf, which means foundation. This is why the gods often say the earth is their footstool. Indeed, some of the spirit energies are so large it is true that earth could be in fact used as a footstool by them. Markuf consists of various life forms with limited senses, thus they are vibrating at a lower frequency in order to form something as solid as a foundation. To make this easier to understand, a rock is actually in motion, although it is vibrating so slow it is heavy, hard, and what appears to be unmovable, although it is just moving so slow you do not have the time to see its movement. The more senses we lose, we become more like a rock, which means our emotional movement and idea of things lessen as we descend. This is also the secret to why gargoyles, the Sumerian stone cherubs, the Sphinx and various other stone figures that have survived from antiquity are all known. 20 PAGE. To be in fact alive and resonating a certain type of energy. Lower life forms are also on a low vibration like rocks, thus they at times inhabit stones. These figures are kept around for protection against other entities by magicians. 21 PAGE. Reason 12 Pictured above are statues that have been passed from magician to magician, as you see here. J.K. Rowling, author of the Harry Potter series, in possession of the same gargoyle John Dee, a well-known magician used to keep in his possession. The spirit lives within the stone. The strength of stone is obvious by its durability. An adept is familiar with all types of stones and the elemental gnomes who have wisdom of earth and fashioning things out of earth. Here are just a few buildings that are positioned on major ley lines. Ley lines have been known since ancient times, discovered by dowsing and also witnessing how things grow in certain areas. A spiraling tree is often on a ley line. Below you see the earth grid of major ley lines, which you will find structures built upon. The smaller ley lines are generally not mapped in such detail. There were also those who just signed up for the pantheism. Since the ladder is ascending and descending, they naturally gravitated towards the negative. The lower dimensional beings, which also make up the foundation we stand on, had its way with them while their channel was open, and they spoke whatever message that would bring more energy and treasure to their coffers. They were led by distortion. Man and woman involved themselves with beings that possessed and incarnated into their human bodies. Some of these beings either never had a vocal box or are no longer in possession of. 22 PAGE. one nor a corporeal body to operate on the third physical plane. Numerous they are, and they could not be counted, as if opening a sealed vault of misshaped things that spawn amongst themselves in what would seem like an instant. Pandora's box, tricks of the god Pen, lord of panic and pandemic. Those who were more interested in the fast route, imagining that spiritual work was a road to riches, would inherit the curse of Amenemone, one of the first names given to planet Jupiter, and is in fact a very active Egyptian god. Jupiter is one of the largest planets in this system. From here we will refer to Jupiter or Ammon as Ammon so we can keep track of this being. Even the Bible scripture gives a clue when it says thou canst serve both God and Mammon. Unfortunately it didn't leave more detailed information. The Ammon is where the M in America comes from and is the great I Am. You will find an advanced intelligent amphibian called Ons, the fish god, amongst them, along with its offspring such as Dagon. They crossed into our world a long time ago under the Sumerian name each. Pronounced Ea, Lord and King of the SA. One of the greatest questions that will ultimately come to mind is, are the actual planets themselves doing this, or are these malevolent beings with various powers who have fooled man into believing they are the planets? To answer that we will have to consider a few things. The planets themselves are in a fixed movement, everything interacting together. I personally know there are many more planets in our immediate system that most know nothing of, such as Vulcan. The heaviest spiritual involvement from these satellites seems to come from the asteroids like Venus and Ceres, along with what we call meteorites, falling stars, and comets, that seem to cause many of the problems. There are also hollowed artificial satellites such as our moon Sin, and Phobos, which are bases of some sort. Think of this also. The Bible is supposed to be a holy book, and in the end you find a passage that says something like, woe to the one who adds or takes away from what is written in this book, we will add to him the plagues of this book and take away his name from the book of life. There is obviously a faction that cares nothing of this warning, because every time a new edition of the Bible comes out, there are serious changes. People need to start seeing that the ones who are changing it care nothing for the curses, because there are none, and the book itself has stories borrowed from everywhere. Such was the way of these people. The negative forces are infamous for lying. If a being says I am Ammon, I am Jupiter, the planet you know as the biggest, I find this no different from a man who says I am the son of the sun, and because of that I have leave to destroy everything in my path. Man has been notorious for blindly following these possessed, deluded traitors who are blurred by their own desire to iconoclast themselves in the mold of time and usurp the throne of the Great One, which is unreachable and immeasurable. Surely a man can charge into battle with great strength, imagining he will vanquish his foes, and then the next thing, he awakes in evil Elysium Johanan for such foolish thoughts. Everything material will pass away at some point, thus it is only wise to seek immortality with everything at your disposal, letting nothing impede your way. Around you at all times are those who, 23 PAGE, will never see what's coming. They do not desire it nor believe it, thus they have shut the door on themselves and they are wandering in the dark. Protect yourself from becoming enveloped in their aura of deluded drunkenness, where every day for them is the same as the last and they see it not. The time draws nigh. What a waste! The judgment itself is taking place now. We are in 2012 at this moment because of the delay of the Gregorian calendar. Many have knowingly forfeited their chance to ascend, and thus they are like crabs in the bucket, pulling everyone else they can around them into the same prison they created for themselves. Beware of those who you know are involved in some form of dark occult practice. It is now time for the unseen hand or Dark Lord to exact recompense from them. They are now being used to betray even those they were the closest to. Many of them did not expect this time to come and were lied to. They imagined the ritual a game, a mere fraternity hazing. Now they have phantoms as their companions that fill their dreams with absurd visions. There is no rest for the wicked. A sorceress had done all the bidding for the Dark Lord and took pride in it. The Dark Lord promised her he would award her deeds in the underworld. With this promise she worked more vigorously, causing division and setting traps for those who found themselves in her web. On her untimely death she was transferred to the underworld, where the negative forces seized her and commenced to torturing her, pulling her soul apart. She cursed them profusely and demanded to speak with the ruler of dominions who was watching from afar. When approaching she said, "I have done everything you have required of me and even more, I have sown discord with the peaceful, and separated many from love and happiness. This I have done for you and the reward you promised me, where is it?" He said, "I lied, did they not tell you I was the father of lies? I find more pleasure in betrayal than I do in honor, think not my titles go without proof." And he waved his hand for his minions to commence as he watched. Reason 13. The Greek god Jupiter and his consort Juno, indeed this is not a planet, this is a man, impostor. Obviously not a god for daughters. Planets do something entirely different than impersonate themselves as men who have women, nor do they ever appear as men. Think. 24 PAGE. As will be made clear, what we are dealing with at times is interplanetary, extra-dimensional, highly intelligent space scum. One simply has to think that although some may perceive already that we are alone in this universe, which is profoundly untrue, if we blew up Earth it would cause a chain reaction of cataclysms for the entire galaxy. Thus we have been governed by higher forces that oversee the timing of events so the crazy dictator doesn't slip on the nuclear kill switch. There are principalities, rulers, forces, and dominions in place working out an entirely larger scheme that makes Earth more of a value subdued, not destroyed. Think of the loss of resources and biological data. Earth is a storehouse of genes working together well enough. For one moment do not doubt all these genes are in cryotubes fully catalogued and ready to implant into other worlds, which is a part of terraforming a planet and getting it prepared for higher life forms like me and you. Since we know there are other beings with other senses, we can endeavor to obtain those senses also. This separates us from animals who seldom openly enlist the help of humans. This also means that some who have higher senses have already discovered harmony, the benefits of a collective mind, the power in numbers, the elements, etc. Thus there is a place to go. It is entirely possible that the knowledge of even how to alter an entire planetary frequency with just insects that also emit sound frequency is in the Orion arsenal of technology. This moves us further into the intelligence of beings who are more advanced in some ways than us. We could go so far in imagining what they have and what they can do, and we would more than likely be right. However, what is of value here is to show that they are not the creator of all things. They too had a creator, and if we find ourselves in service, it should be to that only. They are no doubt involved in our evolution. There can be no question of it. Just as the will has saved us endless amounts of time and effort so we may travel further, faster. If these beings gave us TV, or should I say things like the cathode ray tube and the integrated circuit, that's enough altering right there, case closed. The way many beings feel about Earth is they would not give something that looks like dust compared to Antares and Betelgeuse the honor of destroying this whole galaxy. Everything must evolve in time, and for this segment of the human race the time is long overdue. The lower dimension now awaits, occupying the spot we are in now. Since the information vault is now open, you can gain a higher level of esoteric intelligence, without being fully initiated, and thus stuck in some lower dimension slave world ruled by jealous megalomaniacs because you joined the wrong group chanting Namast, Namesat. Some of the most valuable portions of this information has come from higher beings still reaching back to help along the children which we all are. They gave no names, and they demanded no worship save to the original creator in which all things will eventually have to face, and it is patient, shrouded within itself, majestic and wise. Many of the forces that have invisibly protected and guided the human race have long since ascended beyond points where they can any longer interact with the Earth because of contamination and its lack of pure ideas. Thus there is a heavy need for new ethereal planetary workers, not Golden Age materialist. 25 PAGE. On the flip side, there are those working with the dark force that have kept the masses in this recent segment of time away from the true wisdom. Their doctrine is to know, dare, will, and keep silent. One should understand their oath to keep silent. They are all around and they would never reveal their identity. Those who have read works like The Art of War and The Law of Seduction should get a general idea of how they operate in business, much less in the spiritual world. These particular books written by Sun Tzu along with works by Machiavelli such as The Prince and various other shrewd titles are required reading for the upcoming business elite. In addition, they do not just read but put into play the methods being elaborated upon as if the world is only a giant chessboard with human pieces. Even now this particular work which you hold in your hands is allowed to reach the mainstream not because they could not easily stop it, but because it fulfills another one of the prophecies, thus they cannot plug the loophole that has been made. Although they plan unceasingly, the Most High is the greatest planner. Have you not noticed the forces that seek to hinder always tell what is to come in the future before it happens? Even in the Bible there is always a solemn warning by the prophet before the destruction. This is in fact a law of the universe which exists so that all conscious beings on a planet may have a choice of whether they want to participate in the collectively planned future of that planet, attempt to do something to prevent it, or emancipate themselves from it entirely, which is always an option. We do hold the master button on our personal Earth life. If we want to really exit, we can make it happen. Some type of choice always clings to us. Our future is the beautiful fractalized shape of a myriad of choices. As you see within the word planet, there is a plan here which we will just call Plan Net 10, which means the end of one world, and of course many new worlds will begin after. Our status in the ungoverned worlds beyond has much to do with our accolades and milestones that we have crossed in our previous world of origin. This information always remains on our aura even if we are unaware of it. Think of yourself known throughout the whole universe as someone who assisted your race in ascension. As all things are recorded, that's what the record will reflect once the deed is accomplished. Every action we make will always be contained somewhere. It determines what we are to face next on various levels of action and reaction. It can always be accessed and cannot be erased, just balanced. If you were strong, did you protect the weak? If you were truly wise, did you share your knowledge to your best ability? If you possessed wealth, did you distribute the goods committed to your charge? It was known that each segment of astrological time is controlled by a particular planet. That planet is responsible for emitting the energy that is necessary to accomplish what has to be done during that cycle. The universe can be looked at as a big clock in which the planets rotate positions as if on massive cogs. It is known that Mars was once in the position we are occupying now in the cosmos. They were the third planet with a lush surface, oceans, etc. What is left now after their wars is just their core in which we still find war-torn life. Mars was 3 times larger than Earth, a sad story that was. The name Mars and wars make it not hard to piece together what happened on the scorched red, 26 PAGE planet known to be the Marshall Planet of this system. The planet was split into 2 warring factions that went to a stage of war we would call biologically nuclear. The effects were far-reaching, creating a ghost world of infected souls. Lemuria in fact means ghost world. A remnant of one of the Martian factions was sent to Earth just in case their race faced total oblivion. They are today known as the Zulu tribe of Africa. In their legends you will find the history of their advent from Mars. They were warriors, they have no shame in admitting this. The wars fought on Mars continue here on Earth between the 2 factions called Atlanteans and Lemurians. We find Shaka Zulu as one of the earliest African films introduced into our physics for a reason that will be obvious later. The original Phoenicians were also of darker skin tone. It may be of value for you to start seeing these deities, gods, spirits, demons, as beings alien to you because there are many of them that did not originate here on Earth. In ancient times people had gained the knowledge of this and began to emulate the movement of energies, stars, and planets, and thus some became completely alienated from the people. This is also when the elitist religions of the chosen people began to flourish. Those who wished to be in power during a certain era would make pacts and oaths with the spirit energies, and from there they would become fleshly vessels doing the bidding of these rouges by declaring war on all unbelieving infidels. Even the word peace means something must be split up and only a portion remains. The word unity also means a unit or part, not the whole thing. We have grown so accustomed to these words we don't see that every time nations use it as a reason to go to war, we get exactly what we ask for. sending in the units to tear things to pieces. The world has now been divided into so many pieces we have all become isolated from one another, and thus we think our true enemy is our fellow man and women, and silently in the cabal rules one who is not human at all. I shall smite its face. These factions were often at war. Those who became initiated into the Dark Brother and Sisterhood's cults were taught the finer details of the spirit world and how it works. Vile beings in the realm of afterlife betwixt dimensions began hoarding the human souls after death. Other times we were made while living to go to physical war in the name of the gods which only hurt us, fragile fleshes. This was forbidden times. Man was lost worshipping gods, stars, asteroids, and moons, thus destiny was created. Just as you see in the story of Jesus, the Estins, known then as the Magi, were following a star that indicated to them the birth of what they had been waiting for. You will find many sects of ancient men that follow the stars. The Ishmaelite Arabs along with the Egyptians had extensive knowledge of such things due to the clarity of the stars in the desert on a clear Arabian night. Of course the knowledge and genius of the genie which was a jinn or jann. Many of which are trapped in desert regions in the sand. Sound as glass, they were confined there encased under sheets of it until men removed them from the bottle. They could beyond doubt prove that when a baby was born a star appeared first, thus they had knowledge of when someone important was born. 27 PAGE. Reason 14. The Egyptians were given extensive star charts of animalistic nature in which they emulated. The priesthood itself was in such complexity the people were made to dedicate every act of daily life to a separate star or deity, leaving little room for natural growth and unadulterated consciousness expansion. Subtly this becomes another reason why we as a people become servants of kings, queens, presidents, dictators, and icons who all follow the procession. I will not bore the reader with tales that can seem as myth in this primitive time of the futuristic coating we live in. We will just dive right into things as they are now. This way you have little to research because it is happening all around you as you live the truth. The world has now become a very large version of the boy who cried wolf. Now that the wolf is upon us, few believe that there is even such a thing. So many have come saying they know what the future holds, only to disappoint those who felt foolish to believe them, and this has made the people weary of warning and preparation. In this I know you will find an energy that will arouse you once more. 28 PAGE. Listen and I will instruct thee once more how to turn this language in thy favor. Gird thy comprehension and fail not to seek inner standing in these words. Humans have grown indeed complex and have no simple answer for their troubles, so look not for something easy in explanation. The time grows nigh and many are at the end of their cycle, some raising to eternal beauty and others to layers of retribution, sheets of fire in which they must be passed through with no end, miserable. If you say I am saved, lo, you are in error, none can be sure. If you say I will bow down now, nay, it will be impossible to stand up. It is wise to make haste in embedding your mind with exact knowledge beyond reproach, so you may position yourself to receive a fair judgment as you have been already observed. The faithful will find these words sweet to their ears, while the faithless will be made to listen, for their jinn even seek a way to escape what is to come, and it will most surely not delay past its appointed time. Aka Saturn aka further time for short was the god known to rule the age of Aquarius, which we now find ourselves in again as of February 14, 2009, Valentine's Day. The symbol of Valentine's Day is a heart being pierced by an arrow. It is the esoteric symbolism of when our universe known as the Sagittarius dwarf would be passing through the heart of the Milky Way, crossing into the parallel universe B for a galactic lineup. At this very moment, while we are crossing the Great Divide, an opportunity that has been proclaimed for eons is taking place for those who are in the know. Reason 15. This is by far not the first Aquarian or Golden Age, in fact this only represents the time of a shift. The energy of the cosmos actually assists a person, if they do a little seeking, to find higher truth. Once that time passes, those who have not seized enlightenment will come around the cycle again after death, remembering little of what happened before. The Golden Age movement is designed to get the whole world to rewind and relive a time long past. The most recent golden age in our history was the times of Hitler and Nazi Germany. 29 PAGE. The opportunity is the merging of collective minds and frequencies, allowing an individual to become the portal for higher essence and their higher purpose. Purpose equals energy. This other world is what we glimpse ourselves in at times while we are asleep or in vision. In this world everything appears as it really is and there are few limits. One has higher senses, can fly through the ether, considers not time, and can make contact with multiple beings. Omnipresence, the art of being in more than one place at a time, is possible in this parallel realm, thus you can visit multiple people all in one moment. This is why it is easier to contact other beings while in lucid sleep, so the controllers do their best to keep us from being conscious while in that world, even more than they do in this one. We tend to watch our dreams rather than control them, as in society we have a tendency to take things as they come and react accordingly rather than getting directly involved in the big picture. On the third dimension there are physical laws against omnipresence. Generally you can only separate your body into two parts while on third dimension. One of those two when split is basically a vegetable. The body, when lacking a soul, will appear limp with shallow life signs until the spirit re-enters it. The technique itself, when not a natural gift, takes proper training, as Dr. Monroe revealed in his hemisphere synchronization techniques before the CIA gained control of his work and altered it, or maybe he was the CIA all along, especially since his father was a known CIA agent. When you are lucid riding the dream like a wave, you can call forth beings, and if you have the might to withstand them they will appear. Then you will see what they really are and you will learn why many of them we should not be worshipping. Destruction is a main part of keeping up the chaos on Earth, and many of these beings are destroyers. Now that the Hindu pantheism is the preference for the New World Order, they have unleashed a whole retinue of destroyers like Shiva, Kali, and Lakshmi. They calm the person by telling them to think they must be destroyed completely to be made new again as they dissolve into nothingness. They are instructed to chant and meditate on the destroyer, which is a weakening tool. This is no different than nonsense like boiling frog's eyes in pigeon's blood, which Agrippa used to recommend to Caesar. The end of these things could never be positive because it began in negativity. Kali is bedecked in the severed heads of the victims she has destroyed. We will have to learn again how to judge with common sense and take things at face value. For many of us, our life is attached to time. The clock is one of the most valuable tools in controlling the mind. The elite know there becomes no use in counting time unless you plan on it running out. Imagine in immortality and infinity someone actually counting the hours and minutes, talking about useless. Saturn, also known as Chronos, which is where words like chronological and chronograph come from, was elected for time because of his rings, which signified like an old tree his length of time in the galaxy. In other words, those attempting to learn the age of this universe looked first to Saturn and the debris in its rings containing residue of lost planets that entered the golden 30 PAGE age of destruction and chaos, now long forgotten although their essence still remains. Reason 16. The stunning rings of El, rich with the debris of forgotten planets. Planets such as Maldek and Vulcan are seen clearly on ancient star maps but are now somehow gone. Some I believe are still in existence, others have left this galaxy, and some were destroyed in wars. The sign of Aquarius or the Golden Age bears witness with two wavy lines in which some say are signs of water and others that of lightning bolts. Known as the Age of Man, the water being dumped out signifies the cleansing or deluge. The mystery of lightning was shown by shooting an electron in sterile water and watching as a single-cell life form appeared out of thin air or a portal, depending upon your perspective. That showed us that life could be created from nowhere out of virtually nothing except energy. This of course destroys the evolution theory. At this point there are many beings leeching from the human race, under many guises. Reason 17. The classic white-bearded depiction of Saturn. Few on the outer circle have figured out Saturn is affiliated with the serpent. Notice the largest serpent underneath Saturn's arm, not to mention what is happening to the child. They also refer to the bearded god as the great architect, although he destroys everything he builds. This is why Santa and the Wizard of Oz fit this motif. 31 PAGE. Reason 18. The Brotherhood of Saturn is in big service today, underpinning various organizations. Depicted below are the inner circle. The outer circle consists of all of the religious projects erected for global domination. This is Saturday, Satan, Santa Satan, Saints Saturns, Sabbath, etc. Sur, Sur, Zar, Ser, and Sur are all names for the serpent energy. Ye shall know them by their works. Long before the Third Reich, Ammon was worshipped as the chief deity of many nations. The knowledge of Ammon being one of the largest planet in this solar system was known since ancient times. You can then see why many want to find favor with Ammon, since they believed it was the biggest, thus it was also the strongest. Again, it is the name changes that sometimes throw us off the trail, and that is of course if we have even decided to investigate what could be going on beyond the level of petty politics. Ammon is also Pa, Thor, Jove, and Pater, pronounced Potter. Europa, a moon in Ammon's orbit, is where Europe got her name from. This goddess from Crete, daughter of the giant Sidon, set up a civilization where we now find Europe. Many of the beings are referred to as giants because in other civilizations their home planets are much bigger than Earth. It can be assumed that their height proportion is in conjunction with the size of their planet. Ammon has 63 moons orbiting it while we have only one, and that one moon has a lot of influence over the minds of our planetary inhabitants because of the magnetic energy. As will be seen, more and more humans are energy, and we have a magnetic core and poles just the same as a planet, hence the term bipolar. To show a brief link, we will talk of another tool used against us, which is money. This is by far the most effective tool, so I will discuss its spirit origin. The money we use now is paper. We're no longer really using currency made of metals, as you may have noticed. In the old days, if you had lots of silver or gold, you at least had the energy of these metals around you, and they carried certain types of strength that gave one certain spiritual advantages. Now we are on paper. Why? The main advent of this was with the first pope, of whom his parents were papists. A papist is a person who makes paper or parchment. This magical art was known to be taught by one of the fallen angels and is discussed in the Book of Enoch under cutting of roots. Certain trees, when blended together and formed into parchment, have a binding effect. This is the basis for the special paper a talisman must be inscribed on. When you look at the currency of the world, which has been revealed with the US $1 bill, you will see many magical symbols, especially stars, and even a magnetic strip to give it power. The paper itself holds a binding energy that perpetuates our desire for it. This was one of many wicked things done by the papacy by direction of the esoteric knowledge of the Jesuits. Reason 20. While pretending to teach moderation and piety, the vice-generates for the wicked one spew their poison of money mammon over the earth. Few know of the Black Pope, which controls the Jesuit arm of the papacy. Money has become the stumbling block of the world. I've heard many say he is our Pope. Indeed, they will share his lot. To the left is an astral depiction of the Pope. The use of trees for magic has been their main tactic. Tree, 3, word, wood. Looking at our world today, one should not be surprised that destruction and chaos beyond preconceived proportion could be possibly looming in the future. We have the NWO Zionists who no longer want money, only blood, the Anunnaki ship Nibiru or Planet X, which can be seen from the South Pole lazily headed this way, the end of the 13-moon Mayan calendar, global warming beyond reversal, antichrists in Las Vegas and India, Quetzalcoatl the feather serpent scheduling a tour, the proposed alien invasion warming their ships, the galactic lineup clicking into place, a population doubling by 2012, and a host of other wild cards to give us a jolt into the future. It is safe to say maybe one should start tuning into higher energy and phone home just in case one of these things just happens, or maybe even all of them all at the same time. In any event, this book will serve to prepare the sincere, while still making a good read for the ever-remaining skeptic, which I began as myself. It is better to think of it this way: Since the Earth continues to be polluted and mistreated with no clear sign of massive reversal, we can move a step ahead and just come to the conclusion that all this is happening to promote us to wake up from the smothering and see what else is out there. We must connect with our other half, then with spirit newly mended we can go to the next wavelength. With this formulation we are now wholly prepared or remembered, everything we need being internal, thus we are self-sufficient to move about the galaxy to meet new life which equals new experience. This ensures our proper growth and of course that we don't get bored in immortality caught in infinite loops of Klepoth. Just how long can we as a people really wake up every morning, battle traffic, suck fresh smog, get to work, give half of what we earn to fascist, come home and eat Codex Alimentarius infested food, get digitally mind-controlled by the flat screen, go to sleep, not remember our dreams and start over again the next day? Come and have you noticed that for many it seems like the movie Groundhog's Day, February 2nd, the 33rd day of the year, and why are we taking this? There is something that has not been figured out, not because of the lack of intelligence, but rather the height of distraction. I personally believe that right now in your hands is what you need to get your perspective focused once again on the main picture. The census says our population will actually double by the year 2012. The reader should highly consider if the Earth can handle double the trouble it is in now. It is due time that the world change, and the same energy it used to destroy for so long will now consume those who used it in vain as they are consumed in the reflux current. The elite knew there would be those that would come able to convert their negative energy they spewed upon us into positive. They tried to tell us it was only one, the anagram for Neo, that could do it, which is far from the truth. They feared and anticipated that the younger generation, who seemed to have the unique ability of converting bad into good, would catch on at some point and break the matrix. This term the matrix comes from the head of the Greek goddess pantheon known as Mediatrix, of whom their descendants come from Medea Media. Reason 21. The youth of today withstand heavy bombardments of mind control and degradation, some becoming stronger and smarter than their predecessors while others hopelessly face early termination if the mental and physical poisoning of the elite continues. There are those who serve consolidated dark energies under elitist pretense and thus have been eating away at society for centuries. We will uncover their deeds and their involvement in this golden age. Amongst many other things it behooves you to know as they are trampled beneath our feet. This will not be to stop them, no, it is too late for that. The judgment is set for the children of Seth, and they would just as soon push all the nuclear buttons before they would cease and desist. What a miserable brood they are. Even now our government looms over 50 pounds of weapons-grade plutonium, in which it would take only one to blow up the whole Earth. This plutonium is being kept in the satellites we have in orbit over the planet. This serves as a way to keep the benevolent forces from entering our atmosphere and saving the many species besides humans that exist here, not to mention it is our responsibility to emancipate our own race. The world government has proclaimed to benevolent extraterrestrials that if they seek to physically intervene then they can pick up the ashes. This is why you don't see vivid aid from other benevolent humanoid factions. They remain at the status of unseen. They show us the way through signs and seldom materialize. I have personally viewed videos recorded by NASA showing the use of the plasma cannon developed by Nikola Tesla to shoot at other spacecraft seeking to enter our atmosphere. Whether those craft were friendly or hostile cannot be determined by the video. However, it is safe to say that the prison planet is being guarded. Our minds now serve as the only link to those who seek to give us assistance. Internal clarity is all they need to contact us. It is good, this is all. It takes millions to go in space by physical ship, but it is free with your body. What a treat. The Most High gave us $1 million ethereal vocation vehicle. This is written so you will be able to recognize friend from foe, allowing you to steer your course to what comes after the destruction and chaos which is surely new worlds. You will do all of this while evading what you will see so many get caught up in because of disbelief and non-preparation. The world leaders are not the allies they have showed on numerous occasions. They are merely puppets that are fully animated and can put on quite a show that often deludes the non-observant. Reason 22 Politics is all a game, the joke is on us. Time and again the masses fall for the trick. We sent warners to them and they taunted them saying, "Show us this God you speak of, you are crazy and deluded, whereas we cannot see it. They I'm a zy dead s not hus imagine they could see pure energ with 2 ygyoism not one given to them be the creat which kept clo and bsen by tor they loosed beyond function in the e-cent of their heads. So they were d to divided amongst themselves wondering if wh was spo what oaken was truth and they fell under conviction. They reta thyc. And to one of the Wayanas with threats we give us in the name of your God and we shall less but Allah the warn could no provide a vibration familiar to our ndc as ne'er not know them so they stm toned him, raised him as a marty and invenenam that was pleasing to them entered me so. Reason 23w when the third eye is activated illusion collapses and then you see the O as it the and you world true is. Uli, 36 page. The oath of silence has kept many people from telling you what is detailed here in this fabulous work. The first reason most were told to keep this under the strictest confidence was the ability for it to allow a powerful system to continue unchecked and running with few interruptions. Those keeping the secrets could only benefit as long as what they were doing, in its totality, remained a secret. Most organizations, especially secret societies, are compartmentalized in a way where each group is only holding a fraction of the truth, thus the new initiates never know the complete plan. Reason old plans are now coming to their completion and all the workers for the unseen hand are in key places of government waiting to carry out the next part of the plan. Reason 24 all important positions of power even past the presidency are run by individuals who are initiated into secret societies. They don't keep their involvement a secret, just their practices. One only needs to go back 200 years and they will find the entire civilized world involved in dark magic and grimoires. Countless novels were written by men who had made pacts with demoniac life forms to represent them and do their bidding. This became so popular demons trapped in jars, talismans, gems, and various tools of dark magic were sold on the black market at high value. The underworld operates in the dark, it is hidden from plain view. 37 PAGE. The leaders of this world go about every day with ease and receive little attention by the masses as they crush the weak, expressing no remorse. A simple look at the criminal news network CNN, and you will see glorified slaughter in high definition. Many that have risen in efforts to oppose the tyrants have often been unsuccessful due to their lack of knowledge about the high places and also in regards to how the elite possess and control power. It is time that we admit we are not dealing with dummies that just need to be voted out of office. There is more evidence of a massive plot that need be put to ruin. Leaders like Martin Luther King arose attempting to free the people but still remain trapped to the religion that did little for those he represented. The first ship that brought Nubians to America was named Jesus. The most Christianity seemed to do for the Africans was make them more passive brainwashed servants. In fact, pacifist movements always come into play when the people were finally ready to rebel against the oppressor at the cost of their lives. There is a certain power that possesses a person when they are willing to lay down their life so that the children may have one. This power often preserves the life of the courageous. This is the true act of unselfishness, a noble deed. After all, the adults that have lived till at least 30 in our current era have seen so much of life already. We have enjoyed what it took lifetimes for our predecessors to experience all in one vacation. We should thus do our duty in carving out a world for the innocent youth who already bear the gifts of the future in their complexly beautiful minds. This is something I believe our earliest ancestors attempted to do, thus we must finish what they started. 38 PAGE. Reason 25 Martin Luther King receives an award from Illuminist Jacob Rothschild. The Illuminati plan pro-peace agendas all over the world to make the people docile while they put the finishing touches on the New World Order. the tactics often used remain the same. Many have become traitors to their people for a moment of power that they will forever regret, but they lack reason, deluded by promises of great material wealth which will corrode under the inevitable pressure of time. We shall take up account with their souls. When looking today at those that still rule, their high ranks have been depleted, thus they are making new pacts and selling what does not even belong to them. This extends beyond material resources and has crossed into plasmic and ethereal supplies bartered throughout the trade routes that extend beyond Earth. All the miles that have been walked, all the pain that has been endured, all the walls that have been torn down, we have but one final task by delivering the final blow to the tyrants before they reinforce or re-legion. The soldier can no longer continue in this present day, since he knows what he is doing is obviously not for patriotism. So they now put him behind a screen to kill and make it look like a video game as he flies the drone like it's on PlayStation 3. What he kills no longer brings a feeling, since even the victims appear as just white lights or blobs of infrared on the screen in the tank, plane, or battleship. Since the world is now in the information age, every soldier has access to Zeitgeist and many more publications revealing the intention behind the hideous wars of the past. This makes him question his role in such disasters, since he sees that it is not to protect the country that we continue to kill thousands. Since they foresaw this happening, the chemicals already put into the soldier's diet to keep him subservient were increased. He was removed from the front line and put behind the computer to deal out death, still remaining under the foot of the general. 39 PAGE. Reason 26. With movies like Zeitgeist, Fahrenheit 911, and numerous YouTube videos, the modern soldier is well informed of the internal plots and black bag jobs of the elite. Soon the true hero, which is given another name entirely, will rise from amongst their ranks, turning the tide against the negative forces. Injustice will not continue forever. Even a broken clock is right at least 2 times a day. The hero Haw Haw was a temple prostitute esoteric story character. We are much greater, encrusted sevenfold with positive energy is armor, the mighty. The biggest issue we have with overpopulation is people seldom greet each other anymore. When passing by on the street, jogging in a park, walking on the beach, or pretty much anywhere, unless people are drinking, and then nothing is clear. Truly, if we are prepared to see a one-eyed green alien and accept them before we can see our own neighbor who may be of different ethnicity but a human nonetheless, we have missed the mark. There was a time that if you happened to see another human while in transit, you immediately greeted each other with hugs and kisses of astonishment as you tried to communicate by first giving gifts and showing them things you had found on your journey as they did the same. You would explain to them the various territories you have crossed, what resources were there, and what to be aware of. Oftentimes you learned their customs and came to respect their individuality, marveling at how the Creator made things so diverse. Now that has faded away and people are looked at as expendable, some even as worthless by others as racism increases. They have forgotten if you have climbed up on the ladder you are in a perfect position to help the person below you. Instead they give them a boot in the face, knocking them down further. We must re-establish communication. When you look around you, if you see someone is lonely or troubled, speak to them. I find it amazing men will speak with devils, demons, and brutes but not their own kin. Reason 27. The unique blend of ethnicities is one of the greatest assets of Earth. We have so many things to share with one another while religion has kept us divided, teaching us not to mingle with one another. Our souls are all unique and none are the same, thus we operate as a team with multiple functions endowed with splendor and beauty. It is only the blind that cannot see this. 40 PAGE. People, no matter the color, never overcame and they still face a constant barrage of self-degrading tactics, especially by the sellouts of the music industry bombarding the world with low-frequency sounds. This is not just exclusive to the African Americans but all races that have members who, in thinking of only of themselves, have become the catalyst used by a dark elite to deceive their people. The Brotherhood of Ma sent Mahatma Gandhi a firm contact of the Theosophical Society, as the Mahatmas and Maitreya's have always been. They were sent to quell the disturbances in India with a pro-peace movement so the British could regain control as the uprisings began. The Indians, a people tired of being enslaved on their own territory by the British, finally reached boiling point. They pacified them through Mahatma's pro-peace teachings and kept them from taking back Persia until England could regain strength from spreading itself too thin in its hasty plans for complete world domination. Now they have turned their country into a giant telemarketing call center. Reason 28 Modern research in behavioral science and gestures has shown all the individuals on the left to be insincere. The latest Lord Maitreya positioned in the center of globalist Benjamin Creme is scheduled to make his advent once the U.S. economy collapses. Lord Maitreya has already appeared in several countries of the Orient and all the spiritual leaders are endorsing him. Maitreya says he is the Maitreya, Messiah, and Mahdi that all religions have proclaimed to be awaiting the arrival of. His miracles so far have been magnetizing water in which people can enter and become healed. There will be no limit to these types of deceptions in the last days as the science and energy of the body produces what appears to be miracles to people who don't know they can do the same thing. If you ask me, did these men and women know how they are being used, I will tell you that I believe some do not. It seems they believed in peace so much it filled them completely beyond understanding of bigger pictures. They could not be themselves if it was under some type of false pretense. To me this is no different from the pastor of the church, the congressman with the beautiful, 41 PAGE family and the great smile, the bartender, or the inspired musician who bring forth the works of degradation. Reason 29 Media mogul Sean Combs is actually wearing the Maltese cross which symbolizes a heavier involvement in the Zionist agenda. This cross cannot be worn unless you are an initiate. Even rapper Jay-Z under the label Roc-A-Fla Records could not use that name without some type of granted affiliation by civil law. They are willing puppets selling out to the Illuminists to push rape music that gradually destroys the mental and physical moral of the listener. Rock has always been a tool and right now the pieces fit on why all this is coming about. There are others who are very conscious of what they are doing. We find people like Emperor Haile Selassie still revered by the war-torn Ethiopians of Nubia who are clueless to the paramount role he played in subduing that once rich fertile country. He turned their remaining resources over to the Queen who he was in constant retinue with. You see the Jamaicans jamming to Rastafarian tunes with little if no knowledge of who Raz is. Raz is another form of Ramajuka god introduced into Nubia by Ramses II on his maddening mission to be the greatest pharaoh to bring about conquest of the whole world. That position he never achieved, thus he defaced the temples and shrines of the Egyptian ancestors, removing the names and bodies of the previous inhabitants. Surely this was a dark man that would do anything for his personal gain, thus he prostituted the people to the gods of the underworld more than any in his lineage. 42 PAGE. Reason 31st Haile Selassie was exiled from Nubia and reared as a child by Zionist. He is given a first-class education and then reinserted back into Nubia where he becomes emperor. He then proceeds to divide the land and relinquish its resources to the monarchy. He is seen here with the young Queen Elizabeth, Theodore Roosevelt, and the Pope. When you see and study all this you begin to realize why not much progress in the right direction has been made for humanity. The people we are taught to idolize, our revolutionaries, presidents, dictators, religion leaders etc. are placed in front of us like a carrot dangles in front of a rabbit. We want to believe we can elect one person to handle all the troubles of the world so we can go back to our daily programs. It is decreed that until we come together and take control of our world, those in power now who do not care about humanity like me and you, will continue to decimate it. As long as we keep trusting them and remaining lazy and insolent to what we get to do, which is take our world into harmony, we will not feel the yoke lift. As good people we want to believe that someone like Obama could change our course, although every indicator told us he would not. This is no different than thinking Christopher Columbus discovered America when there were already entire maps conscribed before he was even spermatozoa detailing the whole world from an aerial view and it was not flat. 43 PAGE. Reason 31 as shown on CNN. Obama has more elitist in his lineage than most presidents in U.S. history. Zionism is not a color, it is an idea that is not even Hebrew. It is safe to say that what is put directly in front of us, especially through popular media, needs our personal investigation and common sense before it can be trusted. The sheer energy of crowds envelops all who are in the midst. As hearts begin to sync up, all are in the hands of the so-called world leaders, and in the past, few have led in the right direction as they grope about the darkness of Kali Yuga, gathering all the resources for their private groups, consuming far more than the average citizen and never loosening the yoke. We cannot continue to be looked at as resources rather than human beings. Taking the mainstream's word for it seems to always prove unintelligent. They are liars, and they will say and do anything to make the masses disbelieve in what we have felt for so long, which is that religion, politics, social, and educational structures are developed to hinder, not free the people, lest they raise the whole earth, which can be seen itself as a large ship, into the higher heavens, that those that have fallen cannot ascend because it burns away all impurities. The gods need not money, it is man who needs the money, while the gods divvy up what is more precious to them, the gold or the soul. With taxes taking 40% and church taking 10%, what is one to do about the baby? The religion of Christianity has done enough on its own for anyone with a keen eye to see something may need to be questioned. Even the scripture says the proof of wisdom will be within the type of people it produces. As I often say, many of those who are in church are only there because of the conviction of the Lord. Whatever that statement really means, it sounds more like a jail sentence. Anyone who does not see religion as simply stairs to the top will often get stuck on one level or another, thus never entering complete enlightenment and only perceiving its premature phases. Enlightenment itself comes with having a firm foundation of truth, unshakable, 44 page. Not able to be moved as it is fortified in exactness. That exactness comes when the real truth of whatever faith you elect falls upon your ears. At least at that moment you have an opportunity to really serve the God you claim to worship. You will now have the hidden doctrine of these faiths, which is generally reserved for the priests. Reason 32 when Rome merged with Egypt, they borrowed the rites of Isis, casting Jesus known as Iesu as the new Horus. We are not saying this individual did not exist, he in fact did. However, what we are questioning is the final destination of the Christian soul, which is the underworld, just like it was with the rites of Isis. Ra is ruler of the underworld, he is better known as Amen-Ra. This is why all Christian prayers are concluded with Amen. The Latin word for prayer, which is oration, indicates their power is in Orion. In 1999 a movie titled The Matrix was released and made its way to the top as the box office churned the propaganda machine with numbers rivaling Star Wars. The City of Freedom, they gave the name Zion, blatant Zionist propaganda, as even churches pride themselves on being called Mount Zion. Just as Bob Marley heads sway to the tunes as he sings about Zion, the city depicted as having no worries, and this is anything but true. The defeat of the mind of the masses was subtle, not by force. When the flutes, cymbals, and lyres play, then the formidable human force is lulled to sleep. 45 page. Reason 33 many love the flow of Bob Marley's Rastafarian music, never once noticing the Zionist connection. When the shields of the mind are down, the enemy is sure to invade. The New Age movement now insists there is no enemy, and this is just a figment of a mental hologram. Poisonous vipers, their words are sly. We need to take back Earth or get ready to leave it entirely. What is to come cannot be escaped. This was set in motion a long time ago and does not reverse, so we must work beyond it. They say humans unlock their true abilities under the scenario of fight or flight through the adrenals. Learn to simulate those expressions and began to work on you. Remember, what is happening does not come from a particular race of people, it is an idea that many are aligned with and has consumed their rational senses. There were of course many things hinted and alluded to in the movie The Matrix itself that we now in fact find to be true from various levels. It leads one to ponder the exact design of what we are really faced with currently and in our not too distant future. What kind of force would show us in something we are supposed to find entertaining, that it has us trapped in an ounce-like mechanical netherworld where our senses and abilities are limited and our energy harvested. It beckons one to ask, are we really in a matrix? Can we be pulled out of the matrix? Is there an actual code to the matrix? This book will show beyond the shadow of doubt that the answer to the questions being proposed above is yes, and that is not all. This book will awaken your memory and quicken you, thus causing your DNA to reformulate, which I will prove to be possible by the end of this composition. DNA itself is manipulated by the mental state, surroundings, and acquaintances of the individual subject. When any of these are altered for a constant period, the DNA itself also alters and reformulates according to its environment. This means that once you become firm about what you know to be true, especially about your special abilities that have been dormant, the DNA will reconstruct itself to make what you will believe again to be possible, happen. That is one of the main secrets of creating the superhuman. You have to give it reason to activate itself. This takes consistency and, as we talked about earlier, a firm foundation grounded in truth to what reality is, not what Maya or illusion attempts to make you perceive. The value of this to your future would be of catamount benefit, especially in the world of today where knowledge is power. You can thus remove yourself from the cubes known as the hexagon or the beehive. At one point long ago, a jealous force recognized that certain types of knowledge meant unlimited power to those in possession of it, thus much of the valuable knowledge was removed. All written copies were burned, although at least one copy was placed in the 5-mile library under the Vatican. In replacement, we received lies mixed with truth, which does a horrible job on the mind as we watch the masses plug about clueless, still searching for themselves because religion has fulfilled almost none of its promises. 46 PAGE. Reason 34. The elite depict the world full of worker bees, trying to be something, but they are trapped in hexagonal cubes. This Platonic knowledge introduced the dark square or cube. Pythagoras introduced several methods of trapping organic spirit into matter cubes. We will speak more of this later. We are talking about the level of foreknowledge which gives you the ability to know what will happen before it takes place. This is the time it is most useful as things speed up. You will be able to do this without the aid of books and scholars, thus you will be placed back in the driver's seat of life, exiting the checkered cab. The issue we all individually face is that we wait to see what is going to happen next before we react. This is called reactionary. This leaves you with no preparation and little time or ability to shape the future. I say that one should confront danger and fear before they become closed in by it, instead of allowing it to greet you on your doorstep while your loved ones are inside. Run and face it so you may prevent it or at least prolong it. This may in fact give those you care for the edge they will need to prepare. Again, think of the 7-year-old who will have to live at least another 10 years in this world and what they are to face in those 10 years. What kind of monsters have we left for them to battle? Supplying people with this information will at least allow you to say that you did the best you could, which is also why I write this to you before my departure. When comprising this particular work, what came across my mind, since I had long since discovered the code, was to write a book that even when the reader is finished they could continue to write their own unique personal novel of experience. Due to the fact that we are all entwined in some way or another to what we are experiencing now in the world, you will find amazing sinks in 47 PAGE. Your life that all roll into why you're here. Just because few are using the collective consciousness channel does not mean that it is not always broadcasting. We are always linked to it. In fact, it is more like two lovers who have both fallen asleep on the phone and the lines remain open although there is no one speaking. It is time you begin to unlock all the mysteries and most importantly yourself. Often I began lengthy writings only to leave them incomplete. Pieces of these writing you will find in italics throughout the book. They serve as tidbits of poetry to ponder. The rabbit hole is far deeper than I expected in the beginning, not to mention the fact that after you get deep into the rabbit hole you must climb back out, which they forgot to mention. You do not want to be in any hole, trust me. When you learn the whole system, you will have so much knowledge you will not be incapable of fitting it all in one book. What should be kept in mind is once you start to unlock you will see what used to remain hidden, everywhere in plain view. This also means that everything is not contained here, only the framework that is needed for you to build your own ladder out of the cube of flesh into the sphere of spirit. After that the statement will come true that if the oceans were ink and the trees were pens you could still not write about everything that you will know in fact to be true. With that being said, I have done my best to narrow the book down to what is of highest worth to know. It was originally meant to show how words themselves play one of the most valuable roles in your individual awakening. That later morphed into a detailed story of our true past, present, and future. Even the elite cannot simply say the old language is no good anymore, so from today you will use this new language. That only happened one time in history in the confusion of Babel. When tracing the story of Babel or the gates of Ishtar, a far more complex story arises than the brief chapters dedicated to it in the Bible. In the ancient texts one story holds about Babel. This tower or ziggurat had multiple purposes and it was also connected to a gate, the two went hand in hand. In most ancient tribes some type of structure was built to serve as the portal of communication between the presiding god-goddess and the people. You will find a precise geometric layout of some type of construction, whether stone altar, pillar, temple, hollowed tree, or various other portals. You will learn that the geometric structure, especially its number of sides, has everything to do with the type of energies being evoked and from what dimension, plane, expanse, or abyss they hail from. In Reason 35 you will see a rare picture of prehistoric London, now synchronistically called Babai London. It seems the Atlantean-style Art Deco is preferred. The pyramids have 4 sides because they are massive gates to the 4th and 8th dimension. These dimensions, although very different from the 3rd, are functioning and highly populated unbeknownst to the masses. It is time to understand that multiple worlds exist already functioning, some far worse than the one we are currently in, and some in complete harmony like a utopia, but not by that word. Let's get there. 48 PAGE. Reason 35 Ancient London was more like a rather large Stonehenge Atlantis. Few know of this part of London's history and the ongoing attempt to restore its sacred layout. Notice the model of Atlantis as seen on the right. Later you will see this particular design can be found everywhere you find Atlantis affiliates, especially in government and parliament. What is most amazing is how the obvious goes totally unnoticed. This would mean that we are out of focus and we need to actually zoom in or scale down to look at what is right in front of our face. For example, Christmas is an anagram for Mithras. Once you remove the C, Mithras Day was December 25th. Do you think it would be of value on various levels to at least investigate who this individual is? What I find is those who think an inkling about their souls want to prepare it for afterlife. This would mean knowing as much as you can about what that involves rather than just imagining that being a servant in the afterlife forever would actually be a reward. This is what determines whether or not you end up in a place that will mean total freedom, or the opposite. Servants are always slaves to something. It is already obvious that our current overseers seem to be very detached from the people, so this means you must build yourself to learn of the higher things. The future can only be the future for so long and then it becomes the present. Another ploy is the fight we get dragged into all the time with these two brother archetypes that appear in many religious texts, whether it's the astrological Jupiter versus Saturn, Sumerian Alilu versus Anu, Egyptian Osiris versus Set, Hebraic Ishmael versus Israel, and my all-time favorite classic mind job Cain versus Abel. This is the roots of duality. After reading hundreds of testaments, Vedras, hieroglyphs, steles, tablets, and spending months in meditation on what had been gathered, a very clear picture began to emerge. When this quest began, it was in earnest desire to find God. My ideas have never been to disapprove the existence of God or other beings, only to create a clear path that I may enter in constant communion with them. There can be no benefit in falsely disapproving something that could emancipate us all. In addition, I not only studied these faiths, I immersed myself in them. There can be nothing more unnerving than someone ousting a religion that they have not even studied, much less participated in.
What I did also, since I was very serious about the quest, was I sought to become the highest in each faith I was diliging, 49 page in. So while I was a Christian, I was a pastor and prophet, while I was a Muslim I was also an imam and Sufi, etc. There can be nothing more positively life-changing than following the truth even when it goes against everything you have been taught. I believe many headlong in their religion have discovered through one book or another the true origin of their proclaimed faith. At that moment and subsequent times after, the person enters a strong duality phase. One side insists that it is the wicked one who is trying to steal their faith. This side tends to use no facts, only emotions, barraging a person with memories of past divine experiences. The other side finds constant facts that debunk what the emotional side is suggesting. It often shows that paranormal experience should not be the only gauge of determining if something is true or false, especially positive or negative. Sadly, the emotional side tends to win because a person has also gained friends in the religion, a home or fellowship place, and all these novelties weigh heavier on making the correct decision to disavow. As a pastor, it was hard for me to walk away from Christianity. However, since I was also infused with the spirit of truth, it was even more difficult to keep denying the obvious, which was its demoniac esoteric doctrine. Once engulfing the spiritual terrain, there is indeed a common story, it is only the names that change. We will examine this story once and for all because it is the backbone of all belief systems, which we will call MEs, pronounced maze. Belief systems and words are MEs. In the Sumerian text it talks about something described as only MEs. If one gains possession of the knowledge of these MEs, they can control large parts of this dimension. All authors on Sumerian religion never present a definition of what these MEs are, just that they are very powerful. It is noted that the ME is not a weapon. They describe various weapons that belong to the gods in the Sumerian text, but they are sure to keep the MEs separate. The only hint they give of them is that they are written on tablets. The resin of information that remains coated on our aura of what happened in past existences will always serve as mental triggers for our minds. This is how stories of our past is linked to religion in order to bring about devoutness, fear, resonance, and loyalty under false pretenses. A cruel mental scheme designed around ethereal-based historical facts. 50 page. Reason 36th Sumeria inscribed their relic the Anz Edition on stone tablets have one that survived since antiquity. All the stories of the Torah were first Sumerian minus the name Kals Ra Stn Anges. The MMEs we known to be inscribed on such tablets due as Moses was propo to raise tablets to ibdachus esost aves inscribed by T God YH the HVHT Tragagramat Shem, Noah's son, finds a secret stone with also Nieng engraving from before flood and conceals I from his brothers Lot to use it magical from and it alter its formulas. Odds were passed by AD doctrine that could be I learned that some MEs were certain of power in cooperated around those words. One who controlled the names could conEODNTROL whole nations. First we will examine the doctrine. There are things that have happened on our Ned planet that even reincarnations cannot completely erase the memes moriav, and that is the flood. The flood is MDEE mentioned in Evansian text, although very NTO it was not said to be related to man's sin but rather natural to NF phenomena. Punish he meant for man's sins story did no come up until Sumerian and out Hebrew text mainly operated o fear and reverence of a terrible god wrath than on d bleher unconditional love. This is obviously the project of guilt. Main re-sct these and for being leaders of his these groups we always warring wits around wth ding count so love w not a good angle them, rise was for, eitism was more ideal. Curry the eng of the last flood left resid in our has due war, vengeance and favory aura, thus all Tories that begin with FB floods are entertained by the subc conscious B because it knows for A was Blair. Epple have a phobia of deep fact the flood W true,
The details are of course not available. Many pay weight because the last FLR of Lud. The ark is the odd part of th sublimin in train hinalment of doctrines. The word itself resonates elf to escape so mad thing that is fearful and impendi such as dark. I was know that you could inding the at wn, 51 page. Traverse the netherworld on a bark which meant a special boat. There were few who made it onto the ark, and those that did were given a mark to show they had been saved. After the dark came the sun, which we unconsciously assume will rise every morning. The sun awakes the whole world and gets the next day started. The sun and sun were made synonymous in English because of this. The Babylonian name being Sam, son of Sam, or is it Samson? The sun god religions embed themselves in the natural occurrences of nature. There is always a mother, sometimes two. Since we are in a binary system, this always leads to one good mother and one evil or surrogate mother, Eve and Lilith. The mother archetype will always survive because the planet can never be seen as anything different than a nourishing mother, thus when a name for the Mother Earth was given, all would revere it as they do their physical mother. The name was spoken as Gaia, then Maya, Maya, then 1,000 more. Often the origin of the name was never examined. The people remained always too trusting of their rulers. The dying and resurrecting sun theme was all in a day's work. The sun died at night and resurrected in the morning. This always left the door open for a host of nighttime nightmare creatures that played the role as adversary to the sun, thus the devil became night knights or setters in sunset, still as sun god nonetheless, with a host of worshippers that gravitate towards darkness. Once this began, the idea of a city with eternal light was hatched, a place that was never dark, and of course there were requirements of how to get there. Those requirements were made known by the numerous prophets, shamans, seers, holy men, gurus, yogis and various others playing the role of predictors of time. They later became just as revered and reversed as the god itself. Notice how in Christianity Jesus is now worshipped more than YHVH. Many in church don't even know who that is, nor do they care. Jesus has it all covered. In Buddhism there is more discussions about Buddha than the divine concept of the focal point which Buddha presented. This is no wonder, since they say his mother's name was Maya Maya, all around the world the same song. Various sects of Islam suffer from the same problem, revering caliphs, imams, and Muhammad more than Allah at times. The rabbis get more airtime than Ein Sof, especially since they are convinced he is incomprehensible and cannot be conceived by impure flesh. Last but far from least comes the chaos and destruction. Since mankind is not immortal in this physical state, many assume a time will come for everything to die, thus we falsely decree the Earth's time will come also. It should be obvious by now the Earth is immortal and passes through various phases. We watch it happen every day as animals die, bugs die, we age, the house or neighborhood gets run down. Decay is inevitable. However, the glass half-empty approach of modern religion, in which the whole world and most of its inhabitants must be utterly destroyed by plagues and horrors falling from the sky, distorts an act that should otherwise be looked at as the entrance to a greater phase. The truth is the heaven and hell. These distorted belief systems propose are one in the same. With their spiritual technologies they have mastered how to keep the soul in stasis. True spirituality is the growth of the soul. This allows it to become quite the opponent to forces that would attempt to capture it once it escapes the body. Any shaman can tell you this. When he/she enters the spirit world, there are various, 52 PAGE, things its inhabitants consider before they interact with the shaman. Many shaman have various types of protection, but their main asset is the strength of their totem. The human soul is a force to be reckoned with when it is fully in tune. This leads to other beings just leaving you alone so you can live. Reason 37. Religion has constructed an entire ideology of afterlife that plagues the believer's mind with absurdities, giving birth to distorted forms and the imbalance of fear. When consecrated belief is put into such things, they are given the energy to materialize, and believe me, they have already. Places like Purgatory, the Fields of Elysium, Hades, Abaddon, the Netherworld, and many others really exist. Remember, there are now billions of people who believe in these places and most end up in them. The doctrines of today are combined in more or less a religious buffet based on collected information gathered over time. Some systems more creative and poetic than others. Although the story itself only served to captivate and implore the neophyte, it was the names which are vibrations that created the staying power. All throughout this work we will be examining various names of 53 PAGE. Power. The commoner is enticed to a place of worship for one reason or another. The high priest, however, must understand how it all works, especially the spiritual realm. Chanting is a major part of priestly duties beyond ritualistic observances. What chanting does is bring the body into the frequency of whatever name is being chanted. Once the frequency match is accomplished, the portal is open. We are the fifth element, being comprised of earth, flesh, water, mucus, air, breathe, fire, blood, and the fifth, which is the divine breath, likened unto fire, none can produce save the Most High. Many have tried and reasonless abominations they continue to bring forth when practicing, as doctors and magicians tend to call their art of non-perfection. One of the real reasons this is happening is the Most High has decreed all will eventually return to the source, and it does not exist in time, thus it is extremely patient. It also says it is sufficient enough to rule its creations and does not need representatives that claim to magnify but in all actuality block the way. If man or woman wanders off the true path, they easily lose focus by being divided amongst gods vying for power, splitting the person's energy at least three ways, which they call the Trinity. Instead of following these gods who want sacrifices and servants all the time, I went to look for something that is not as petty and sadistic, and guess what, I found it, and I'm giving it to you. When you give something good out, you get the same in return. That is what we were supposed to do, no matter what everyone else is doing. Just remember, if they don't know the code, their entire form as it exists before you is being affected in more ways than you can even conceive, so you can afford to give those you have grudges against a pass. This is prehistory, however. Gods abound across the globe in various lands, and they are increasing. This is because the term God is being used so loosely, you even have people saying that they are God. I know the popular argument is God is experiencing itself through us. This is another one of those things that just sounds good and is never questioned. The Most High brought forth all experience from itself and shared it with us as a gift. There is no need for the Most High to live through us. I'm sure better things are entertainment for an all-powerful being building multiple galaxies with a spiral force than playing The Sims with its human creations. The truth is, sayings like this are fuel for the ego, which can make us think a little too much of ourselves while still not in constant contact with the Most High. We are living in a society where most things related to paranormal and esoteric matters that have been proven are still hidden from us. Imagine our maturity rate compared to freed societies. With the entities, the stronger eventually becomes the victor, and they are warlike gods. The Most High is not involved in such debased and petty things. This is the key to proper distinguishment. With the gods, their strength comes in numbers. Those numbers are individual souls who get caught up in the religion and die with it freshly on their mind and aura. It's time you finally get the truth so you can be what your dreams used to say you were when you were a child, traveling worlds with endless imagination, creating things in your perfect undistorted image. 54 PAGE. I will make it clear, if it wasn't for the brain screwing by those sinister groups that administer medical drugs and procedures, cartoons, candies, toys and education to kids while they are in their most sensitive growing phases, naturally we would have a beautiful world full of joy. For those that came out ill, they would be showered with love and positive vibration. This would bring up their frequency, thus curing them. Simple. So there is someone to point a finger at, and this is exactly why the New Age movement has hatched, because people once again are rising up as the burden is getting heavy. One now has to work 2 or 3 jobs to keep things going, not to mention their habits, and they are tired of this, and with just cause. Silently we know this is not our fault, and when I found the code in the language at that moment, I knew it wasn't the people's fault. Before then, religion had me thinking that it was because they didn't worship the right God so they were suffering, or it was some past karma from another life so they were paying in this life. I would silently think, what, can we be sure of that? Reason 38. There can be no doubt the elite are implanting the children with corrupt ideas. They propagate and insinuate war while the child is still growing. Thus it becomes more natural later on in life. It is no surprise to see the dragon and skulls mixed in with this poor child's cache of death-dealing plastic. This is what I came to stop, the misinterpretation of the Most High, and I give my life proudly exposing everything that I can to make the world better and to restore the power to the people for free. Why not? It is a noble deed. What else do we really have if we lose the earth and don't know where our next home will be? People expect the afterlife to be some big happy festival where something invites you into a higher realm with rivers of warm honey and milk, streets of fine affairs gold with 55 PAGE. Gems and diadems running through the current of sweet water cool to the touch as compatible mates are all around you basking in the glow of the god. You can see how that can lull a person into a deeper sleep than they already are in. What is being described here is something you can have on earth. The real heaven is much more, if you but knew. Medical drugs are now, according to rehabilitation institutions, far worse than street drugs. This is not suggesting one should use street drugs, however, we should find it daunting that our organization formed to look after our health are actually the orchestrators of a slow mental and physical arsenic death cycle. It is now known that Alzheimer's disease, the disease that makes the elderly forget all their precious memories, is mainly accredited to the cocktail of drugs given to them prescribed by the doctors intentionally. These drugs contain high amounts of mercury which melts the brain as chemical ether melts the soul away. Even the word retire tells a person to go back to sleep. Incredible. The chemicals in baby formula are mostly metals exhausting the child's natural nutrients like enzymes in which never develop again once they are depleted. Reason 39. This man was prescribed all these drugs over time for chronic pain. The more he would take, the more they would prescribe. Since the doctor is only interested in billing the insurance company, they don't really care. The medicines in fact cause the continuous pain. Many of the individuals who work for the organizations that administer these things are unaware from the sense that they have been compartmentalized in the mind. The dream of being the doctor with the white coat, sloppy handwriting, Rolex, and BMW infested the grid that we all plug into. Compartmentalization is done through the language. It takes at times thousands of years to alter a language, and since words are really vibration, the actual true meaning can never be destroyed. You feel it through emotion. Of course, many things will be exposed and made known to the reader that is riveting. I would only ask that one should not concentrate on what they do not know but rather what they will and should know. When something is introduced that is new, it is oftentimes rejected at first. This rejection is really fear. It seems we often forget that this is how we learned everything that we, 56 PAGE, know right now. At first it was new. Then you learned and practiced it, and some things you even perfected. New always equals fear at first, something like your first on-stage recital, especially if you had a speaking role. I will tell the reader now, nothing will be the same after you finish this book. It cannot be. The world itself will open for you and you will be given back what we have unknowingly given up or lost, which is true choice. I will also say that what I offer is the truth, nothing more. It is the person's own unique decision, after it has been restored, that although the facts will be made clear beyond doubt, to ultimately believe and react to what surrounds you at every moment is your own individual responsibility. The system itself is comprised in a way to make the individual feel a dependency upon it and a false love for it. This is what keeps an illusion solid. This becomes the key to determining whether or not you are prepared for ascension during this lifetime or whether you need to come around the loop again. So wasting no time at all, you may accompany us in a journey through the rabbit hole. Trust we know our way around as true light does at times pass through the lower regions of Hyades as a box is the final residence of all foolish men, kings included. The word, how this all came about, this thing we call the Matrix, was through a play of words. Language is the Microsoft Windows or Unix for the brain. The Bible says, "In the beginning was the Word." This did not mean the whole book because it would have read, "In the beginning there was a book,"
but instead it refers to an actual word that can create things. This ability is referenced here in the first book known as Genesis. Since we are in the image of the Creator, we can do smaller versions of the same thing depending upon how well we understand the ability and how to use it. Although the need to create a new world word is now at hand, the gap between creating multiple worlds and creating the things within worlds is vast, thus the original keepers of this knowledge used this ability to form many things after the first creation. We will call them secondary creations. These secondary creations were not created by the Most High but created by the beings the Most High created. This is of value to remember how to distinguish one from the other. Through the real Kabbalah, that four-letter word, and its many formulations were made known to a few men, and that gave the original man the ability to step onto the level as baby creators. The word Kabbalah itself means oral resuscitation, which means that the true Kabbalah can only be given verbally due to correct pronunciation of these words of power. It is never written. When this knowledge of such magnitude came to be known across the land, two more Kabbalahs were introduced, the first being the Abjad, the Arabic Kabbalah, then came the Kabbalah of Canon, or the Grimoires, of which the latter can be easily downloaded from the internet, while the former has remained hidden. Imagine how many people downloaded a copy of the much more common Kabbalist Grimoires when Madonna proclaimed she was studying Kabbalah. 57 PAGE. Reason 40 NYHVH, known H also as the Tetract or Des Tetragrammato, N as the name E Judaism, and M Christianity revere there as Father. Tetra means 4. Feffect. There's reason 41 T chart KN Reath is known as Shemhampho Haresh Servath from Ives Antiquity Alth Huff not V very leg gibble. You see the name Candios D on the right side o the E of WHEL. In Ma Latin coeni antris th refer to G as dio hey god os, however he I but one o of the is out many Ma names construct in s head ancient cab and bbalah. Man of ni th names are reported to be he zed and neffable meaning that o one should never utter them verbally rm should on contemput nlymplate in their mind. Ut hem uttering th off the mouth as zar to be hair made as because the flesh is impure sin es sutales kept the pure project bless epiparated fro the true origin on e of these banes since whfngs hen ut ttered they are enlisted to a dap at some point, homie however wh they are hen or rive one mu good must th themselves to deal with so such st arrange overw whelming foe forces. 58 PAGE. This particular Kabbalah, which we will call the written Kabbalah of Cain, was known through circles as the Lesser Keys. This work was eventually identified as a text of dark magic responsible for uniting man with horrid beings from the lower dimensions. This did not stop its reproduction, just as books like the Necronomicon, the Book of Shadows, and the 6th and 7th books of Moses are easily available, and many have become possessed reading books such as Sefer Raziel, Sefer Yeziah, and Sefer Hashmoth, which are still in mainstream production as people are subtly coerced to lend an open ear to the dangerous degenerating art of Goetia, the evoking of departed souls and lesser jinn. Reason 42 various Kabbalahs were formed as many descended the inverted tree of life, which as can be seen here led to heavy serpent and beast worship. It is unmistakably obvious that this has gone beyond some mere hobby for wise men. This has become an art that has corrupted minds and made men into the pawns of spooks. Let us keep this in mind. If you are a powerful high-vibration being and someone from Earth is summoning you, it's obvious you have no time to fool with the Earthlings to do their selfish bidding, which generally involves controlling people and making money. Being very different, the lower forms, 59 PAGE, have something to gain by making pacts and acquaintances with humans because they are on lower dimensions, some of whom have forfeited their chance of ascending. What a loss they have lava to drink. To sum up Kabbalah for the reader, I will give this explanation. The original oral Kabbalah consists of only one word that masters every spirit energy on this dimension. The entire body was put into formulation to pronounce this word. The written Kabbalahs have been proven to a degree to teach the Magas how to control droves of elementals that can be bent to the will of the Magas.
However, one should keep in mind that the use of these beings to gain advantage in everyday life rather than doing it naturally always spells trouble. It has been documented several times that these beings are very different from humans. Being lower life forms, they have only one ability, thus their name elemental, meaning simple or base, a controller of one element. They are referred to as sylphs, undines, gnomes, and salamanders, which correspond to water, air, earth and fire. It is known that they often play tricks on the magas, hiding things, and breaking things, which becomes a can of worms that the practitioner wishes they had never opened. Those are the normal experiences. Deeper forms of this practice have led to haunting, unknown strangulations and death, as the other world will continue to entreat the magas, driving him or her mad, especially in Goetia, where the departed souls drain the life force from anything alive in the vicinity when evoked, especially the magas. Reason 43. A classic depiction of a magician who has evoked too many elementals. The art of magic itself is very real. Dark magic is dangerous and leads to encounters that can stunt the seeker's growth. Magicians have been known to also create two-part beings known as golem to do their biddings. There is now concern in certain esoteric circles in regards to golem, who are said to be revolting because they too are evolving and want to be free. Stories such as Solomon controlling jinn has fascinated many into believing that it is man's right to control the jinn. The attitude of seeking to master something you do not understand will always lead to trouble. There is generally no trial and error or learning curve in magic. One mistake can lead to a lifetime of problems. 60 PAGE. That one word mentioned above and its correct pronunciation was lost because of abuse and was before then only known by the high priest, who learned it from the high priest before him. The name was said to be pronounced only once a year during ceremony. The name itself when pronounced responded instantly with no delay, thus the name was alive and not dead like the many slow-responding idol gods of the time. Although I believe the true name was removed long before then, the holy name possessed by the Hebrews was recorded as lost during the time the Romans sacked the Temple of Jerusalem. It is said in legend that the high priest was caught up by a fiery chariot into the sky just so the name could not fall into the hands of the profane. The Arabs protected their secret name so tightly that few know the Abjad Arab Kabbalah even existed. The Shriners, Aleppo and various secret societies for spiritual adepts studied under the Arabs. Reason 44. Westerners went to Arabia to learn the esoteric wisdom of the Arabs. When they returned to America, they used what they learned to gain control of the whole country. As can be seen in this rare book, they own all things of importance like the railroads. Even Forbes' grandfather is in this book. The written Kabbalah of Cain was purported to be the path of recovering the original true name of the lesser god after you descended the tree of life like a serpent and met the pantheon of 61 PAGE. Hosts of whose names and position could be deciphered by working through combinations and equations. It is safe to say many became lost and possessed as they attempted to make brutes as allies. It's claimed that one could arrive at the original name through contemplation of 72 letters and numbers has remained unverifiable. In holy languages the letters also double for the numbers. In the end many became insane moving the letters and numbers around and bringing forth energies untold. The art itself gave birth to what we know now as sorcery, the control key being the tetragrammaton, a four-sided cubic diamond also known as the tetractys, made of letters and numbers with 18 functions or lucifers, ciphers. Kabbalah is a life study, so explaining any more of Kabbalah here would only be confusing for the reader, but not for me, and I will tell you just as you see the word tetra meaning 4 grams, and tons. These units of spirit energies can overwhelm the mind, and if the person is not strong their senses leave them forever and the body becomes the host of 4 counterparts. They have named this state of insanity the Jerusalem syndrome. Reason 45. This is the symbol of the magus. Once he is joined with the 4 animal traits he will no longer be the ally of normal men, he feels elated over his fellows. The deepest and darkest part of spiritual knowledge lied within the art of Goetia and necromancy. Apparently this ancient knowledge from Sumeria eventually spread to the Western schools of thought, creating multiple offshoots. The Necronomicon, The Sumerian spellbook of Mudjuk Ra was the initiated doctrine of dark occults. Few initiates knew this. What I find even more interesting is Mudjuk had three main enemies. One was Tiamat. Tiamat was the old name for Earth before Earth had its last encounter with Nibiru, also called Planet X. One of its orbiting moons slammed into what is now Earth but was then Tiamat. This indicates even more that a war took place, 62 PAGE. In the past, involving these invaders who had some issue with the planet we now call Earth. Even known powerful adepts like Eliphaz Levi, who many believe along with himself was the thrice-born Hermes Thoth in his last incarnation, advised to stay away from Goetia, and this comes from a man who practiced almost all forms of dark magic. He purported that this was the worst and had extreme negative results that were far-reaching, extending into the spirit planes of past and future. Reason 46. This is the seal of the Necronomicon of Mudjuk, the sworn enemy of man. If you see it, head the other way. Necromancers are lower life forms looking to gain energy. They are distorted and not fully developed, thus they know not what they do and have no guidance save their dark lords, who is blind. We shall use his body to stir the lake of fire. The sigil is a series of imperfect pentagrams meaning flawed. Necromancy is a game entered the U.S. through the Parker brothers and Milton Bradley, who were illuminists themselves. First it came as the Ouija board and then the game Seance. Once the organic portals, humans that sometimes have unknowingly formed pacts with spirits per game instructions, were open, it became something of a greater proportion. This was the knowledge of the ghost world, which was populated with lost dismembered souls looking for answers and various other two-dimensional spirits. These were those who had spent life in vain and thought death was the end. Many warners we sent to them and they rejected them. As you notice, in Christianity they speak of a gospel ghost spell and entreat the Holy Ghost. What business does the church have with these ghosts? Someone call the Ghostbusters. Again, the only one really responsible is the individual person. There is definitely a point of no return, and that point is reached at times within the first ceremony. If you could see the spirit world, which some already can, you will see that many are watching and waiting for the opportunity to weave their way into your world. These days many have already let them in. Look around your whole habituation and see how much evil is resident, manifesting in the forms of skulls, guns, horror, harsh music, and killing games. All this carries energy, and at a certain point it can overwhelm your atmosphere unknowingly if you don't keep balance. Why do you think media is still stored on magnetic disk? What do you think happens when these disks are stacked or even spun at high rates of speed? Negative magnetic information generates and emits a field of binary aura that fills large areas. 63 PAGE. Reason 47. Most never questioned why these games entered the US, who brought them there, and for what purpose. This dark art was made to look like fun and was everything but that. All the tools were in the box to open a portal to the lower dimension or your money back. Looking deeper, we find an ancient text explaining the final termination of the first round of early Earth gods that ruled mortals through oracles and pagan practices. Along with the captured gods, more than 8 million warring angels were carried altogether to Makhavish II, in hand. The Most High says we cast them into the unquenchable fire, where there was already more than 10 million who were in chaos and madness. For a while the earth was clear of the gods, whose chief labor had been for thousands of years to capture the spirits of the recently dead, and make slaves of them for the glory of the lesser kingdoms. Their end was swift, just as one rises and falls in power. However, the cursed magicians invited them back into this realm once more, and the people, ever lacking in reason, welcomed them back by their abhorred actions and impurities to no extent. Some of these beings are further along the evolutionary cycle than we are, thus they appear as gods to the primitive. The art of deifying or creating gods was perfected in Egypt. They discovered upon death that if a person knew the secrets of the soul, they could become like gods to the mortals. 64 PAGE. Living on the dimensions below them. This feat involved forever relinquishing a chance to ascend, which, believe it or not, many have accepted. The gravity of descension at a certain level is too strong to turn around. Notice grave and gravity are almost the same word, not to mention you go 6 feet down in an 8-sided box. The dimensional transport ritual still stands today in the Western world. If you notice in the Arab countries, the dead are buried immediately in a white sheet, no box, and faced toward the east. Reason 48. The Saturnalian ritual of the 8-sided rectangular box ensured the departed soul was transported to their dimension or sealed. It exists today without the slightest notice, as people are unknowingly being boxed up and transported. As the scripture says, the day the dead will come out of their grave, because many are trapped there. We should ascend the moment we are released from the body. However, the disposal of our shell must be back in the dirt. From dust the body comes, so it must return. The God-making business set some men up to become lords of the underworld and its grotesque inhabitants. Egypt was first known as Kem, the descendants of the lost Atlantis, then Ogygia in esoteric circles, a name long forgotten. Also called Sigean by the mystics, where we get our English word city, then Egypt by the commoner. Much later it was found out that the word Genesis actually was formulated from the words genes of Isis, or generation of Isis. None of these are Hebrew terms. Even the word Bible comes from the word Biblos, which is the place Isis set up worship to mourn Osiris. Likewise, Ishtar did the same with Adonis long before the Holy Bible and King James were thought of. The Hebrews now refer to their god as Adonai, this is Adonis. Decoding the Bible, you will find that all the prophecies are occurring exactly as they have been foretold. This is because millions of people believe the prophecies of the book will come true due to their religious preference. Thus they are actually happening because we manifest what we think collectively out of thin air. I for one know that prophecies are for profit, and that will become more evident later. Many have attempted to authenticate when the books of the Bible were written. After many investigations it was 65 PAGE. At least safe to say many of the books were written long after the actual events took place. Thus the details are solely dependent upon at least second-hand information, which is always partial to who is telling the story. I once read an ancient transcript of a meeting that took place between kings and emperors in regards to powerful languages. Being a person that sought to model myself after wise men, I was curious of why there was such emphasis put on the formation of languages. I soon discovered that language codes and directs the mind, and this was known at least since the time of the ancient Arabs, although evidence proves way before then. According to the Bible, at the Tower of Babel man faces a confusion of languages by the God, and that is the word used, confusion. A few chapters later the same God remarks that he is not the author of confusion. Huh? What is all this about? This made for quite a puzzle for me that made no sense. Reason 49. The dragon hath horns of a stag, head of a camel, eyes of a demon, neck of a snake, belly of a clam, scales of a carp, claws of an eagle, soles of a tiger, and ears of a cow. By these symbols you will know them. Parts of the puzzle we will unravel slowly so nothing is missed. The Ishtar Gate is one of the most controversial relics known to man. Just as the pyramids are gates, the Gate of the Ishtar, also known as the Gates of Elon, were first located in Ur. This was the first gate ever constructed to open the portal of Inanna Ishtar Ashtoreth Astarte Ashura Venus, a channel to androgynous vampiric serpents and various other life forms that hang out in Club Shem Hamfo Resh. She is Inanna, consort of Mudjukra, also called Shira and Rat, connected to the 7 sisters in the Pleiades. Their protector, the dog Hyades Anubis. They are Ma, Maya, Mat, Mag and Mary, who give power to the Magus. With them is the serpent Sor, who is the source of the sorcerer's power of Hathor. This is the dragon, its first depiction, then called SUSAR, abbreviation USA, land of the serpents who guard the Sedona time portal to Siam. Their art is sedation, which brings about delusion and seduction. When, 66 PAGE. Approached by these beings, one feels a pressure around the anus. They are androgynes, thus they masquerade as female and male. This is goddess, dragon queen or drag queen. They falsely illuminate men to the wisdom of the serpent, thus eliminating them from the great race. This is the gate of Allah. Many men have made Ishtar their consort and then have been betrayed, such as Sumerian Gilgamesh and Solomon. As the scripture says, Solomon went after Ashtoreth and sacrificed in the groves and the high places, and after this his wisdom was naught. This is the Bacchanalia, temple prostitutes, the cult of Yoni. They have connected with many of the daughters of the gods called Fates, Farts, nymphs such as Morganus, Medusa the Gorgon, Persephone, Europa, Nemesis, Sothis or Sirius, Sekhmet, Saba, Sophia, Nephthys, Nut, Kadesh. They have legions with them, their succubes draining vigor from their captives. Many an over-ambitious power-hungry fool has wandered down the path of false illumination and few have returned. In ancient times men would war against each other to find favor with Ishtar, then erect a high place in her name to serve as a gate or portal. This is key to know now because you will see them everywhere. Reason 50. The gates of Ishtar. The main reason we went into Baghdad above the oil. Whoever controls the main gate controls all subsequent gates. Those on the ground in Baghdad said the first thing they went for was the museum with a team of individuals that looked like they stepped out of a James Bond film. They were definitely looking for something, some type of artifact or relic. Another use of cigarettes like the Tower of Babel seen in recent 10 was arcs in which several had been constructed through various times to escape floods. People of the time seem to always have a foreknowledge of these floods, whether as was through the adepts or by records left by 67 PAGE. Prev V or civilization. As said before, the ziggurat had various uses. O current world lead have all assets are ders L of th in format etion and regat are not owards only future floods but also which land mass will submeth is merge as the W world ages during the shift. Th will give none of th in former stst hey is ashen to the common people and it seldom leaks out. Instead they can't add tiny to extend the underground caverns both themselves building d or is g say deeming other planets securing their future. Th new Toe of Babel is in a he where else back cities, and terraformed Ubmujik by K Ra finally accompli y shed what h set out to do, which was to build the tallest building he old and th world. He through ancient geography we lee that ma regions that are d on any ezets now w were actor wally oceans before and you are looking at th sandy bot d he ttom of the m. Reason 51. Many indigeno tribes now left several warning about GS Earth's F flood cycles. They also had high consciousness to astral try to ravel other PL laces before such things occurred. The illiterate expandi their ing underground domain in en preparat ashen of future miss. Cataclysm. These machine borrow is 3 miles p day per and pave the wall way behind them at the same time me in earth cities are beautiful well. 68 PAGE. Reason 52. The new Tower of Babel, the tallest building in the world, built by the construction company Wathi, which means one who is loyal to Pharaoh. That Pharaoh is Ramses, who was the fleshly vessel for Ra. Keep in mind these spirit energies are immortal and they incarnate into willing vessels who are all connected by bloodline. In the last Olympics the Chinese government showed their alignment with the plan of a new world order as they danced around the tower. This is why many of the Chinese people protested, unfortunately to no avail. What the world leaders have done however is revealed their true identity. This is priceless for the guided, truly a big answer in a world full of questions. Language allows us to communicate and express ourselves, embedding itself in the framework of our mind or mental matrix. When the words we use are manipulated by the developer of the language, it is possible for us to think and feel like we are saying one thing but in all actuality we are saying another, which would change the outcome of our intended desire. The most damaging thing about many languages of today is they are not only backwards as the word indicates, but they are also heavily laden with the names of various deities from our past fetish with pantheism. It is now evident that many words with certain vibrations pull energy while others restore energy. This was shown through water crystals. Our body, being 70% water, is extremely sensitive to vibration. Thought is also vibration, and this is how thought forms are created and given life. It is apparent that in the history of man and women there has been lots of meddling with negative energies which can be seen within our warlike nature and bloody history. The development, 69 PAGE. Of weapons began the downward spiral. This art was blamed on the fallen angel Tubal-Cain, the Kennet goat god who in legend taught man how to fashion the first sword from a plowshare. From that point man looked for anything to make a better weapon to pummel and plunder his brother. The discovery of gunpowder and various other explosives by the alchemists produced a fatal time of misuse of energy that continues more now than ever. It has also morphed into genetics. Everything is alive, so imagine what radiation's character is. Our kind have become fascinated with force, not energy and ability, which is entirely different. It can be looked at this way: some things are passive like steel, we can fashion it into a plow, till the soil, and bring forth abundant food, or we can make it into a gun. This is my definition of passive energy. Then you have things like mercury and radiation that have no nurturing assimilation for human beings. They are what I call the force. Their use is generally to deteriorate anything they come in contact with. When asking about the various fuels that are used as food for different energies and spirits, I learned that first it was plasma the lower vibration beings fed on, the wars were fought with swords and the blood was up to the bridle. Many ancient accounts note that the battlefield when war was finished would glow with an eerie light and you could see gaseous life forms absorbing the energy of the blood. In time radiation was in preference, the nastier the element the more degraded the host that feed upon it. This is the wisdom taught by us. Now you see they are using depleted uranium, and you should know enough by now to get the clue on where the hosts that feed on that energy come from. Our history also shows that many have had a fondness for worshipping and serving rather than mastering and leading. True spirituality benefits the one who is able to enact such rare talent as communion with the Most High. What remains is religion, which for the most part borrows from everywhere orthodox faiths and tales of villains and heroes may have sprang up. Where most people get lost is being able to imagine this unseen world is real. The world we live in now is very populated with other forms of life. In history these beings were given names in which many people, especially those that speak the languages of the Latin Vulgate, evoke every day. As the wise men always knew, behind your words lies a certain force depending upon how serious you take it. If you speak only idly, there are those who take that as an opportunity to release you of your power and use it at their advantage. They understand how it works. Of course, the biggest move is to detach you from belief that such things could be possible. The names used for these entities have survived without the slightest bit of notice by the average person, until now. The one that can control the tongue is on the path to controlling their thought, and not before then. Reading a book from the 1800s in regards to making spiritual contact will shine light on just how lost and off track many have been. This book proposed that you must wait for the new moon, burn some wheat, be sure to face the west, wait for a certain star to appear, look up to the heavens and say this prayer while gripping firmly the throat of a frog. The prayer itself was a combination of holy names some I recognized to be in direct conflict of each other. I thought to myself then, surely if 170 PAGE must do all this to contact the Most High, then maybe we are lost. Of course one does not have to do all of what was described to make contact, but let us not believe someone has not tried this recipe of foolishness and reaped the results. In addition, when the unseen negative forces perceive that one will go to extremely barbaric lengths to make contact, they normally lead the person into a whole host of rituals which tend to involve sacrifice and blood. Thus they never meet the Most High and are headed in the direction of a place foreign to anything made of flesh, with no light to guide their steps. We are now living in a time that it is almost necessary for the religious system to reboot due to the amount of legends, myths, and fables that have been all rolled under the subject of spiritual ascension. This book to me was a final effort to get a rope around all the belief systems as they continue to merge, becoming more and more difficult to weed through and track the origins of. I'm sure that if something is not done now, the future generations will have a very difficult time telling truth from falsehood if this is allowed to continue. This book is a key underground tool for understanding whatever happens in the near future and getting through it. History books continue to be revised as more incorrect information is added. If you noticed the hive mind mainframe, Wikipedia, now the #1 portal for information, constantly updates their data and they are owned and operated by the elite. I've witnessed various alterations to certain topics which take a person completely off the mark of truth of the topics of high importance. Before we move further, I will state again that I am not at all an advocate of Christianity, but it is now a fact that the Catholic and Christian religions have restarted a much older design and have introduced it to the world under new packaging. Some addition, name changes and a sprinkle of hyperdimensional magic is all that's needed to mislead the masses. This makes it of value to dissect certain things that we know about the religion in order to fully perceive what is really going on today. You should keep in mind the amount of followers dedicated to each belief system, thus the direction of energy and how it flows about the world you currently live in. Although you may have opened your mind to search for whether or not there is more truth out there, many refuse to read anything related to the subject of spirituality. Another portion will not read anything else unless it is the Bible, Quran, or the particular book attached to their faith, such as the Book of Mormon. In fact, these religions teach that one should not read anything else lest they become led astray, or should they say, led to the real truth. One is looked at as a devil when asking too many questions, and they are often rebuked. There are the others who get lost in all of the complex disinformation produced in works such as Liber 777 and various other novels that claim to be references on the meaning of esoteric knowledge, its symbols, etc. Besides avoiding falling asleep while reading these tales, one is sure to get the feeling they are following someone who has no eyes, guide dog, or cane. They bring a whole new meaning to lost. That of course is for the confused wishing to be witches. The illumined knows of things entirely different. It is nothing like the exhausting sagas and ceremonies of the witches. Direct and constant, 71 PAGE. Contact is necessary, and thus I will reveal how it is accomplished. The 8-pointed star is that of Allah. To the Illuminati this also signifies all 8-legged insects, such as spiders who weave webs. At the entrance of the Bohemian Grove where their rituals take place it says, "Spiders weave not your webs here," indicating they cannot use magic on brothers, however, the masses they prey upon. This star is also used in their evocation and transportation to Venus and various affiliated locations. Reason 53. This is the cross of Allah. What should be drawn from this is the elite use an 8-sided portal for hyperdimensional travel and as their insignia. An 8 is also known as a double cube or Solomon's temple. 4 + 4 = 8. This star is generally behind the head of Jesus when he is depicted. Reason 54. The gate configuration of the Dome of the Rock and CERN both are portals. The word we must introduce in the code first is the OR. The OR has meant since ancient times the gold. As a people we have always been mining gold, whether it was the mines of Nubia, the gold rush of North America, or many of the indigenous tribes throughout Central and South America. It was also known to other beings that the human soul was the real gold. They sought after it within our mind mine. The element gold itself was known to carry a special vibration due to its conductivity, which made it in fact alive and able to channel wealth and material energy. Gold emitted 72 PAGE. A certain type of energy that kept one on top in the material realm, not to mention what it did to the soul when it was ingested in its monatomic state. Monatomics, also known as orms, was the preferred spirit-enhancing elements of the alchemist. Against common belief, one did not have to be a chemist in order to make monatomics. They were often located in the desert in dry lake beds that the sun had cooked for hundreds of years. Caravans would collect this substance and peddle it as secret salts at values higher than gold. This is the legendary salt worth more than gold. This is also why the pharaohs entombed themselves in gold and were found in Basque reliefs consuming it or being offered it by the people in cones. It has always been the most common standard for currency despite the introduction of more expensive metals such as titanium and platinum. Gold symbolizes the lion who you even hear Or. The Hebrew word Ori means golden light, and there is also the Or and Ori in Orion, the most known part of our galaxy next to the Milky Way. In Yoruba voodoo they evoke Orishas, gods who do their bidding at the cost of various sacrifices. I will not heavily elaborate on this word now. You will soon see in time why the OR leads to everything going on here in the W, or LD. You have the words originate, or, and create, or could any words be more powerful than these? This is how the trail leads right back to who fashioned it, and they cannot escape it, as you will find. One of the first Egyptian gods, Ta, is anagram for path, which is the word we use to refer to our spiritual quest or personal road. In order for the system to work and in order for our minds to be fooled, we are made to subconsciously believe they are the creators through word play, which they are not. So the next question would be, of course, who are they, and this we will get to in due time. Reason 55. These talismans are voodoo vives. Amazingly, the elite are also using voodoo, which is another Venusian dark art. The dark forces are in leagues together. The common symbols we use every day mean things much different than we assume. For instance, the heart is the sign of Azuli, another name for Venus. The heart is not a symbol of love but evil. You will see these two snakes associated with the goddess even more as we go, and of course the M73 PAGE. Reason 56. Another golden age was the time of the dominion of the pharaohs. Eating the gold orms, philosophers' stone, amplified their spiritual stature. Orms changes the cellular structure of the DNA to various fractal patterns of sacred geometry. Aegyptus, who escaped the catastrophe of Atlantis, is who Egypt owes its current name to. He was Atlanto-African. In Atlantis, Venus was the head mistress, being worshipped among the daughters of Poseidon. They were known as Hesperides, which also linked to the seven sisters of Pleiades. Amongst them are Aegle, mistress of magic; Erythea, mistress of earth; Arthisa of Hades; Vestals, attending the shrine, which was a tree which brought forth golden apples set in the middle garden of Atlantis. 74 PAGE. I will take a moment to elaborate a little more on the code breaking, which is spell breaking. What you search for first is the smallest word of importance that you can think of. Let's take for example jail. Now it is actually the guttural tone and key spelling that you are searching for, as everything is a vibration. That would then make the word JAL. It is of value to go to this extent so you can see all the words that are not so positive but used every day as such. So let us begin. AELAL. This is the word for the intoxicating, mind-numbing drink of poison, bluntly and rightfully called spirits. Reason 57. We have never had a president in history that showed bluntly he was a drunk. This was to send the subliminal message you can drink and still be president. Baal. This is not only one of the main deities of the Babylonians but also the term used when you need to get released from jail. You must be bailed out by the bail bondsman. It also means to run like never before. Cael. The K and the C make the same sound when solo, thus there is a more deeper meaning. Not to mention X can be manipulated to make this same vibration. What you have here is one of the most dangerous words. Kill, to temporarily terminate life. Deal. Of course everyone loves a deal, but this is what got us into the financial mess we are in now. Think of this, in antiquity there was such abundance, barter was not even the form of transaction, it was giving. We had no reason to even keep food because it grew everywhere and we loved it fresh, especially when we were on the right diets. No wheeling and dealing. EAL or L, as you see, this is the key word. It is also a one-letter word which makes it a core word when pronounced. The Bible says, "And the Elohim said, let us make man in our image." This is the controller of the matrix from multiple angles, personifying itself as various deities. L is also an upside-down 7, which is the sacred number of most belief systems. 75 PAGE. Reason. Another depiction of Reason 58. Another depiction LL Saturn gliding through, always sure to keep the serpent affiliation, sure to keep the serpent somewhere in his depiction. Affiliation somewhere in the this is Sat, Sam, this is Sat, Sam, Sad, depiction. San, Zar, Sab, Sak, San, Sag, Sal, Sab, Sak, Sad, Sag, Santa, Zar, etc. Sargon, Satan, Sal, etc. Sacrifice, Samol, Salamander, Saturday, Samol, Salamander, Sabbath, sadistic, sage, etc. Many of etc. Many of us have these the roots of our these words as the roots of our names. Colonization was truly names, colonization was truly about diluting and mixing bloodlines. About diluting bloodlines. Fail besides its obvious meaning which is to not succeed, it is also the past tense of fallen. The story is really here. The angels that fell, they are the fallen ones. I will bring up now that most religions still share the same four angels from Catholicism, Islam, and Christianity. Even in Hinduism they talk of Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. Gael the Gael with their mystical Ogham script can be found in various parts of interesting history, as their leader Wu-Ten was known to discover America and parts of Canada, setting up trade routes before Columbus was thought of. Wu-Ten is where our word Wednesday or Wu-Ten's Day comes from. This is also the name given to a destructive wind. Hail again. Besides its obvious meaning, this is also a term used to salute various high-rank officials, especially in the German army. Since in ancient times you would name your forces according to where their power hailed from. As you see in the